When a struggling single father dared to ask a billionaire heiress, abandoned by the entire world, to dance, he never imagined that one simple gesture would expose the true face of high society and reveal a painful past connecting their two fates from years before. Can kindness change destiny? Stay with this story until the end, hit like, and comment the city you're watching from so I can see how far this story has traveled. Dimmad. And now, let's step into a gala night where everything is about to change forever. The tray shook in Ethan's hands, just slightly. Not enough for anyone to notice. Not the women in their jeweled gowns, not the men in their custom suits that cost more than his rent. But he felt it. The tremor that came from working 14 hours straight, from skipping lunch because groceries were tight this week, from knowing that his daughter Mia was home with Mrs. Chen from 3B, probably asleep by now, probably wondering why Daddy had to leave again. He steadied the champagne flutes and moved through the crowd like water, finding its path around stones. Invisible. That was the trick. Make yourself part of the furniture, part of the golden wallpaper and crystal chandeliers. Don't look anyone in the eye. Don't speak unless spoken to. Collect your paycheck and go home. The Metropolitan Club's grand ballroom was drowning in wealth. Ice sculptures shaped like swans, flower arrangements taller than Mia, a string quartet playing something classical that Ethan didn't recognize but that made everyone nod appreciatively as if they did. The Hale Industries annual gala, the event coordinator had said during the staff briefing, Chicago's elite. Be professional. Be invisible. Ethan was good at invisible. Excuse me. A woman's voice, sharp. Ethan turned. A blonde in a silver dress that probably cost more than his car was worth, back when his car had been worth something, held out her empty glass without looking at him. He took it, replaced it with a full one, moved on. Someone laughed nearby, the kind of laugh that didn't reach the eyes. Ethan glanced over. A cluster of men in tuxedos, red-faced from drinking, gathered near the bar. Old money, from the way they stood, the way they owned the space around them.
"Did you see her actually showed up?" one of them said, not quite whispering. "Robert's daughter? Took guts, I'll give her that." Or stupidity. More laughter. "Looking like that. If I were her, I'd have stayed home." Ethan kept moving, but something made him look where they were looking. Across the ballroom, near the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Chicago skyline, sat a woman alone at a table meant for 8. She wore black, not the glamorous black of the other women here, with their plunging necklines and strategic cutouts. Just black. Simple. A dress that seemed designed to help her disappear, which was strange because everything else about her, the way she sat perfectly straight, the diamond necklace at her throat, the reserved table with the Hale Industries placard, said she was supposed to be the center of attention, but it was her face that made Ethan stop pretending he wasn't looking. The scar ran from her right temple down across her cheek, jagged and pale against her skin. Not fresh, but not old enough to have faded into something you could ignore. It was the kind of scar that had a story, the kind that changed things. "Tragic, isn't it?" A voice beside him. Ethan startled. Another server, Miguel, who'd worked these events longer than Ethan had. "Victoria Hale, Daddy's little princess. Car accident 3 years ago. Driver lived. She got that." He shook his head. "They say she used to be beautiful." "She still is," Ethan said, and Miguel looked at him like he'd grown a second head. "Sure, man, whatever you say." Miguel moved off toward the kitchen. Ethan should have done the same. Should have kept his head down, finished his shift, collected his $200, and gone home to relieve Mrs. Chen. But he kept watching her. Victoria Hale. She hadn't moved, hadn't touched the wine in front of her, just sat there, spine straight, hands folded in her lap, while the party swirled around her like she was a rock in a river. People passed her table. Some glanced over. A few whispered. No one stopped. Ethan knew that kind of alone. Different circumstances, sure. His isolation came from working too much, from not having time for friends, from being the single dad at Mia's school pickup, while everyone else was paired off in their perfect families. But alone was alone, whether you were surrounded by millions or counting pennies. "You're staring." Another server, Jenna, this time, balancing her own tray. "Trust me, don't. The Hales own half of Chicago. You don't want that kind of attention." "No one's giving her attention," Ethan said. "That's the problem." Jenna followed his gaze, shrugged. "Not our circus, not our monkeys. Come on, they want more canapes in the East Wing."
but Ethan didn't follow. He was watching Victoria's hand, the way her fingers had tightened just slightly around the stem of her wine glass. Watching the way her jaw clenched when a trio of women in couture dresses walked past, their laughter cutting through the music. Can't believe she came. Robert must have made her so uncomfortable to look at. The women didn't even bother lowering their voices. Victoria heard. Ethan saw it in the way her shoulders tensed, the way she looked down at her lap, but she didn't leave, didn't react, just sat there and took it. Something in Ethan's chest twisted. Mia's face flashed in his mind. The way she'd come home from school last month crying because some kid had made fun of her worn-out sneakers. The way she'd asked him, "Daddy, are we poor?" And he'd had to figure out how to explain that having less money didn't make them less worthy. He'd told her that kindness mattered more than money, that how you treated people when no one was watching said everything about who you were. Now here he was, watching. Everyone was watching. No one was doing a damn thing. Ethan set down his tray on a side table. His hands had stopped shaking. "What are you doing?" Miguel hissed, appearing at his elbow. "Ethan, man, you can't—" But Ethan was already moving, not toward the kitchen, toward her table. The ballroom seemed to stretch out in front of him. Each step felt like walking through water. The quartet was playing something slow now, something that made the space feel even bigger, made his worn shoes on the marble floor sound too loud. People were dancing in the center of the room, spinning and swaying like they'd been born knowing how. Ethan had never been to a place like this, not as a guest. The closest he'd come was serving at events like these, carrying other people's luxury on trays, watching them live lives he couldn't imagine. He didn't belong here. Everyone knew it. He knew it. But Mia's voice was in his head. "Daddy, are we poor?" And his own answer. Kindness matters more than money. He reached her table. Up close he could see the details. The way her scar caught the light, the slight tremble in her hands despite how still she held them, the careful blankness of her expression, like she'd practiced in a mirror until she got it right. "Excuse me," Ethan said. Victoria looked up. Her eyes were dark, guarded. This close he could see they were hazel, flecked with gold. Beautiful eyes. Careful eyes. Eyes that had learned not to trust whatever came next. "Yes?" Her voice was quiet, controlled. The voice of someone who'd been taught that emotion was weakness. Ethan's mind went blank. He hadn't thought this through, hadn't planned what to say. The words that came out weren't smooth or practiced. "Would you like to dance?" The silence that followed felt like the world stopping. Victoria stared at him. Her lips parted slightly, but no sound came out. Around them, Ethan became aware of the conversations dying, of heads turning. The quartet kept playing, but it felt like even the music had gotten quieter. Victoria's voice caught. She glanced around, as if looking for the punchline, for the cameras, for whatever cruel joke this must be. Her hand rose slightly, fingers grazing the edge of her scar in an unconscious gesture. You don't have to," Ethan said quickly. "I just thought—" He stopped. What had he thought? That he could fix something by asking a stranger to dance? That one moment of kindness would matter in a room full of people who'd already made up their minds about both of them? But then he saw it. The smallest shift in her expression. Something that might have been hope, or might have been pain, or might have been both. "I'm working," Ethan added stupidly. "I'm a server. I shouldn't have— Wait." Victoria's voice was stronger now. She stood, and Ethan realized she was tall, nearly his height in her heels. The black dress was elegant in its simplicity, and she wore it like armor. "You're serious?" It wasn't a question, but Ethan nodded anyway. Victoria looked at him for a long moment. Really looked. Not the way the other guests had glanced at him all night, seeing only the uniform, the tray, the help. She looked at his face, his eyes, like she was trying to solve an equation. "No one asked me to dance," she said finally. Her voice was flat, matter of fact. "Not anymore?" "Then they're idiots," Ethan said and immediately winced. "Sorry, I didn't mean— that was—" But Victoria's lips twitched. Not quite a smile, but something close. "No, you're right. They are." She took a breath. "I don't know you." "Ethan Cole." "Victoria Hale." She paused. "But you knew that." "Yeah." Another silence.
The quartet finished their piece and began another. A waltz, Ethan thought, though he wasn't sure he'd know a waltz if it bit him. He could count on one hand the number of times he'd danced in his life. Once at his wedding, back when he'd been stupid enough to think love was enough. A few times at friends' parties, before Mia, before the divorce, before life had gotten so heavy he'd forgotten what lightness felt like. "I'm not very good at dancing," Ethan admitted. "Neither am I. Not anymore." Victoria's hand went to her scar again, then dropped. "People stare." "People are going to stare anyway," Ethan said. "At least this way you get something out of it." For a long moment, he thought she'd say no. Thought she'd sit back down, and he'd return to the kitchen. And in 20 minutes, this would be a weird story he'd maybe tell Mia someday. Maybe. Then Victoria held out her hand. Ethan took it. Her palm was warm, her grip tentative. He led her toward the dance floor, and the room didn't just get quiet, it went silent. The quartet kept playing, but every conversation died. Every eye turned. Ethan felt the weight of their stares like physical things, pressing against his back, his shoulders. He heard the whispers start before they'd taken 3 steps. "Is that the server? What is she thinking? Robert's going to..." Ethan kept walking. Victoria's hand tightened around his, just slightly. They reached the edge of the dance floor where other couples were already moving in practice circles, their steps synchronized and perfect. "I really don't know what I'm doing," Ethan said quietly. "That makes 2 of us," Victoria replied. He placed his hand on her waist, trying to remember the basics from a wedding years ago. Victoria's other hand rested on his shoulder, light as a bird. They stood there for a beat, awkward and frozen. And Ethan had the wild thought that maybe they'd just stand here forever, neither of them knowing how to start. Then Victoria took a step, and Ethan followed. They moved badly at first. Ethan stepped on her foot within the first 5 seconds. "Sorry," he muttered. "It's fine." But her voice was tight, strained. She was looking past his shoulder at the crowd watching them. "Everyone is staring. Let them. You don't understand. These people, they're..." She stumbled over the words like she'd stumbled over his feet. "They're cruel." Ethan thought of the men by the bar, their casual mockery. The women who'd walked past her table, their thoughtless words. "Yeah," he said. "I noticed." They turned badly, nearly colliding with another couple. The man, silver-haired, distinguished, probably some CEO or investor, gave Ethan a look that could have melted steel. His partner, a woman in scarlet, actually gasped, like Ethan's presence on the dance floor was a personal insult. "We should stop," Victoria said. "This was a mistake." "Why? Because they're uncomfortable?" Ethan met her eyes. "Good. They should be." Something flickered across Victoria's face. Surprise, maybe. Or recognition. "You don't know who these people are. What they can do." "I know they're people who left you sitting alone at a table meant for 8. Ethan kept moving, kept trying to find some semblance of rhythm. "I know they whisper about you loud enough for you to hear, but quiet enough to pretend they're being polite. That kind of cruelty doesn't get better just because it wears a nice suit." Victoria missed a step. Ethan caught her, kept them moving. The quartet was building to something, the music swelling. "You're going to get fired," Victoria said. "Probably. That doesn't bother you?" Ethan thought about his bank account, the bills stacked on his kitchen counter, Mia's school fees due next week. "It bothers me a lot, actually, but some things bother me more." "Like what?" "Like watching someone sit alone when she shouldn't have to." Victoria's grip on his shoulder tightened. They moved through the crowd, no longer trying to match anyone's pace, just finding their own. Awkward. Imperfect. Real. "I used to love these events," Victoria said quietly. "Before. I'd dance all night. My father would complain that I was embarrassing him, flirting with every eligible bachelor in Chicago." Her laugh was hollow. "Now he complains when I don't come. Says I'm hiding. Maybe I am." "You're here tonight," Ethan pointed out. "Because he asked. Because he's my father and he asked and I can't..." She stopped. Started again. "The accident was 3 years ago. Everyone thinks I should be over it by now. That I should accept what happened and move on." "Have you? Accepted it?" Victoria's eyes met his, and in them, Ethan saw something raw and honest. "No. Every time I look in the mirror, I see what I lost.
Every time someone stares or whispers or looks away, I remember what it felt like before. When people wanted to talk to me, to be near me, when I was... She cut herself off. When you were what? When I was worth looking at. The words hung between them like smoke. The music swirled around them. Other dancers moved past, giving them a wide berth now, like they were contagious. You're worth looking at now, Ethan said. Victoria laughed, sharp and bitter. You don't have to lie to make me feel better. I'm not lying, and I'm not trying to make you feel better. Ethan turned them again, nearly crashing into a pillar before correcting. I'm just saying what I see. You're beautiful. The scar doesn't change that. If anything... He paused, trying to find the right words. It makes you more interesting. Interesting. Victoria tested the word like it might break. That's a polite way of saying damaged. No, it's an honest way of saying you've lived through something. Ethan thought of his own scars, the invisible ones that no one could see but that he carried anyway. Everyone here is wearing masks, perfect faces, perfect clothes, perfect lives. But you can't hide behind that. Your scar tells anyone looking that you survived something hard. That takes guts. I didn't survive. I just didn't die. There's a difference. The music was slowing now, the quartet winding down toward the end of the piece. Around them, other couples were beginning to separate, heading back to their conversations and their drinks. But Ethan and Victoria stayed together, still moving. My daughter, Ethan said suddenly. Mia, she's 7. Last month, she came home crying because some kid made fun of her shoes. They're old, kind of beaten up. We can't afford new ones yet, and she asked me if we were poor. Victoria's expression softened slightly. What did you tell her? That we have enough, that kindness matters more than money, that the kids who make fun of people for what they have or how they look are the ones who are really poor. He met Victoria's eyes. I meant it. But it's hard to teach your kid about kindness when the world keeps showing them cruelty. So you're trying to be better. I'm trying to be what I want her to see in other people. Ethan shrugged. Doesn't always work out. But tonight, when I saw you sitting there, I thought, what would I want someone to do if that was Mia? 20 years from now, if she's alone somewhere and everyone's too scared or too cruel to treat her like a person? The music stopped. The quartet held the final note. Let it fade into silence. Around them, applause broke out, polite and scattered. Ethan and Victoria stood there, still touching, neither moving to let go. Thank you, Victoria said softly, for the dance. Thank you for saying yes. She smiled then, a real smile, small but genuine. It transformed her face, made the scar seem like just another detail rather than the defining feature. She glanced toward her table, then toward the crowd gathered near the bar. My father is probably wondering where I went. Probably wondering why you're dancing with the help, Ethan said, not unkindly. Probably. Victoria hesitated. I'm glad you asked, though, even if it was crazy. Especially because it was crazy. She laughed, and the sound was lighter than before. I should go. Yeah. But Ethan didn't move. Neither did she. Then someone coughed, deliberate and pointed. Ethan turned. A man in his 60s, silver hair perfectly styled, wearing a tuxedo that probably cost more than Ethan made in a year, was standing at the edge of the dance floor. His expression was carefully neutral, but his eyes were ice. Victoria, he said. Not a greeting, a summons. Victoria's hand dropped from Ethan's shoulder like she'd been burned. Father. Robert Hale. Ethan recognized him from the event brief, from the photographs and business magazines at the library where he sometimes took Mia. One of Chicago's most powerful men, owner of Hale Industries, billionaire, the kind of person who could ruin someone's life with a phone call. I need to speak with you, Robert said. His eyes flicked to Ethan, dismissive. Privately. Of course. Victoria's voice had gone flat again, all the warmth from moments ago evaporating. She looked at Ethan. Thank you again for the dance. Ethan nodded, stepped back. Victoria moved toward her father, her spine straightening with each step, her armor clicking back into place. Robert Hale put a hand on her shoulder, guiding her away from the dance floor, away from Ethan, back toward the shadows where she'd been sitting before. Ethan watched them go. Around him, the gala resumed. People turned back to their conversations. The quartet started a new piece. Servers, his colleagues, moved through the crowd with fresh trays. The world kept spinning like nothing had happened. But something had happened. Ethan felt it in his chest, in the way his hands had stopped shaking, in the look Victoria had given him before she'd walked away. "You're fired, you know." Miguel appeared beside him, shaking his head. "Dancing with a guest? Man, what were you thinking?" Ethan wasn't sure. But when he glanced back toward Victoria's table, he saw her sitting there again, alone. Her father was gone. The other guests were giving her even wider berth now, like Ethan's attention had somehow made her more untouchable. But she wasn't looking at her wine glass or her hands anymore. She was looking at the dance floor, looking at him, and she was smiling. Ethan smiled back. Then he picked up his tray and headed toward the kitchen, ready to accept whatever consequences were coming. But when he reached the service hallway, the event coordinator was waiting. Sarah Chen, clipboard in hand, expression unreadable. "Mr. Cole," she said, "I know. I'm sorry. I'll collect my things." "Actually," Sarah consulted her clipboard, "Mr. Hale would like to speak with you." Ethan's stomach dropped. "Mr. Hale." "Robert Hale. He's asked that you be brought to the private lounge." Sarah looked up, her expression softer than before. "I don't know what you did, but whatever it was, it got his attention." Ethan followed Sarah through the service corridors, his mind racing. This was it. Robert Hale was going to tell him exactly how badly he'd screwed up, maybe threaten legal action, maybe make sure Ethan never worked another event in Chicago. Men like Hale didn't take kindly to servers who overstepped. They reached a heavy wooden door. Sarah knocked, waited, then pushed it open. "Mr. Cole, sir." The private lounge was smaller than the main ballroom, but no less elegant. Dark wood paneling, leather chairs, a fireplace that probably cost more than Ethan's apartment, and standing near the window looking out at the Chicago skyline was Robert Hale. "Thank you, Sarah. That'll be all." Robert didn't turn. Sarah left, closing the door behind her. The silence stretched out. Ethan stood there, waiting, feeling like a kid called to the principal's office. "Do you know who I am?" Robert asked finally. "Yes, sir." "Do you know who my daughter is?" "Yes, sir." "Then you understand why your actions tonight were inappropriate." It wasn't a question, but Ethan answered anyway. "I understand that I crossed a line, sir. I apologize." Robert turned. Up close, his face was lined with more than age. There was something in his expression that Ethan couldn't quite read. Anger, maybe. Or something else. "Why did you ask her to dance?" Ethan could have lied. Could have said something diplomatic, something that might save his job. Instead, he told the truth. Because no one else was going to. Robert's jaw tightened. "You felt sorry for her." "No, I felt angry at everyone else." That seemed to surprise Robert. His eyebrows rose slightly. "Angry?" "Yes, sir. Angry that a room full of people who probably claimed to be good, decent human beings could treat her like she was invisible, like she didn't deserve basic respect just because—" Ethan stopped himself. "Because of her scar," Robert finished. His voice was heavy. "You can say it. Everyone else does." "It doesn't matter why," Ethan said. "The scar, or anything else. No one deserves to be treated like that." Robert studied him for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, he moved to the sidebar and poured 2 glasses of whiskey. He held one out to Ethan. Ethan hesitated. "Sir, I'm working—" "You're fired, remember?" "Sarah will have processed the paperwork by now." Robert's lips twitched. "Might as well have a drink." Ethan took the glass. Robert gestured to the chairs. They sat. "Victoria's accident," Robert said, staring into his whiskey. "It wasn't just a car crash. She was driving home from a charity event. 3 years ago, almost to the day. A drunk driver crossed the median, hit her head on. He took a drink. The other driver walked away with scratches. Victoria nearly died. 17 hours of surgery. They saved her life, but not her face." Ethan didn't know what to say, so he said nothing. "She was beautiful before," Robert continued. "Not just physically, though she was that too. She was vibrant, full of life. She lit up every room she entered." His voice cracked slightly. The accident didn't just scar her face. It broke something inside. She stopped going out, stopped seeing friends, stopped being Victoria. She seems strong to me, Ethan said quietly. Robert laughed, bitter. Strong, yes. She's learned to survive, but surviving isn't living. He looked at Ethan. Tonight was the first time in 3 years that I've seen her genuinely smile. Do you know why? No, sir. Because you treated her like a person instead of a tragedy. Robert set down his glass. Everyone else in that ballroom, people I've known for decades, people Victoria grew up with, they can't look at her without seeing the accident, the loss, the waste. They pity her, or worse, they're repulsed by her. His hands clenched. And I can't protect her from that. I can buy her anything in the world except the one thing she wants. To be seen for who she is, not what happened to her. Ethan thought of Mia again. The way she'd looked at him when she'd asked if they were poor. The trust in her eyes. The belief that her father could fix anything. Kids are easier, he said. When my daughter hurts, I can usually find a way to make it better. A Band-Aid, a hug, a bedtime story. But the older they get, the harder it becomes to protect them from the world. You have a daughter. Mia, she's 7. Raising her alone? Yes, sir. Her mother... Ethan stopped. This wasn't the time for his story. It's just us. Robert nodded slowly. Then you understand. The desperation of wanting to fix something you can't fix. To shield them from pain you can't prevent. He picked up his glass again, turned it in his hands. When Victoria came home tonight and told me she danced with one of the servers, I was furious. I thought you were mocking her, that this was some cruel joke. It wasn't. I know. I saw your face when you asked her. I was watching. Robert's expression shifted. I've spent 3 years watching people approach my daughter with pity or disgust or awkward politeness. But you looked at her like she was just a woman at a party, like the scar was irrelevant. It is irrelevant. To you, maybe. Not to the world she lives in. Robert stood, walked to the window. I'm a powerful man, Mr. Cole. I can make or break careers. I can open doors or close them. But I can't make people see my daughter the way you saw her tonight. Ethan stood too. I didn't do anything special, sir. I just asked her to dance. You did the one thing no one else in that room had the courage to do. You treated her with dignity. Robert turned. I want to offer you a job. Ethan blinked. Sir? A position at Hale Industries, corporate. Good salary, benefits, opportunities for advancement. You clearly have character, integrity. Those are qualities I value. For a moment, Ethan couldn't breathe. A corporate job, real money, security. The kind of opportunity that could change everything for him and Mia. No more juggling 3 part-time jobs. No more skipped meals. No more worry about making rent. That's incredibly generous, sir. But? Ethan hadn't said but. But Robert had heard it anyway. I appreciate the offer, Ethan said carefully. More than I can say. But I can't accept it. Robert's eyebrows rose. You're turning me down. I'm turning down the job, yes, sir. May I ask why? Ethan set down his untouched whiskey. How could he explain it? That accepting felt like payment for doing the right thing? That he didn't want to owe his future to a moment of basic human decency? That he needed to build his own life, not have it handed to him? Because I have a daughter, Ethan said finally. And I need to teach her that you do the right thing because it's right, not because you'll get rewarded for it. If I take this job, that's the lesson she learns. That kindness is transactional. That's principled of you, also potentially foolish. Probably both, Ethan admitted. But I've made a lot of mistakes in my life, sir. I don't want my daughter to be one of them. I want her to grow up understanding that who you are matters more than what you have. Robert studied him for a long moment. Then slowly he nodded. You're a better man than most people I know, Mr. Cole, including myself. He moved back to the sidebar, pulled out a business card. I'm going to give you this anyway. If you ever change your mind, or if you ever need anything, for yourself or for your daughter, call me. Ethan took the card. Heavy stock, embossed lettering. Robert Hale, CEO, Hale Industries. A direct line that probably reached past a dozen assistants. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me. You gave my daughter something I haven't been able to give her in 3 years. A moment where she felt like herself again. Robert's voice was rough. That's worth more than any job. They shook hands. Ethan left the lounge, walked back through the service corridors toward the staff area. His mind was spinning. He'd been fired from a job that paid $200 for one night's work. He'd turned down an opportunity that could have solved all his financial problems. By any logical measure, tonight had been a disaster. But when he thought about Victoria's smile, the way her hand had felt in his, the strength in her voice when she'd laughed, it didn't feel like a disaster. It felt like something else, something he didn't have words for yet. The locker room was empty. Ethan changed out of his server's uniform, back into his own clothes. Jeans with a worn patch at the knee, a flannel shirt Mia had picked out for him at Goodwill because it was cozy, Daddy, his jacket with the broken zipper he kept meaning to fix. He checked his phone. 2 texts from Mrs. Chen. The first, Mia went down at 8:30. Very good tonight. No trouble. The second, she asked when you'd be home. I told her soon. Hope work okay. Ethan typed back. Heading home now. Thank you for watching her. He collected his things, headed for the exit. The gala was still going strong. Through the doorway to the ballroom, he could see the crowd, the lights, the careful choreography of wealth and power. A world he'd been part of for one night, in one small way, and was leaving behind now. Almost past the ballroom when he heard his name. Ethan. He turned. Victoria was standing in the doorway, still in her black dress, still straight-spined and careful. But something in her expression had changed, less guarded, more present. I heard what you did, she said. My father told me about the job offer, that you turned it down. Yeah. Why? Ethan could have given her the same answer he'd given Robert, the principled explanation about teaching Mia values. But standing here, with Victoria looking at him like his answer actually mattered, he found different words. Because I didn't dance with you to get something. I danced with you because you deserve to dance. Victoria's eyes shimmered. She took a step closer. No one's treated me like that in a long time. Like I'm not broken. You're not broken. You're just... Ethan searched for the word. Different than you were. That doesn't make you less. Everyone else thinks it does. Then everyone else is wrong. She smiled, and it was the same smile from the dance floor, real and unguarded and beautiful. Can I ask you something? Sure. The handkerchief you had in your jacket pocket. I saw it when we were dancing. It's military, isn't it? Army? Ethan's hand went automatically to his jacket, even though he wasn't wearing the server's uniform anymore, even though the handkerchief wasn't there. But he remembered the weight of it, the familiar faded green fabric. Yeah, he said. It was given to me, a long time ago. By who? Ethan hesitated. The ballroom noise seemed to fade. It was just him and Victoria in the doorway, and the story he'd carried alone for so long. By a man who saved my life, Ethan said quietly. Afghanistan, 8 years ago. Victoria's expression shifted. The careful mask she'd worn all night cracked just slightly, revealing something underneath. Curiosity, maybe? Or recognition. Afghanistan, she repeated softly. Yeah. Ethan's throat felt tight. He didn't talk about this. Not with anyone. Not even with Mia, though someday he'd have to find the words. I was Army, infantry, did 2 tours, and someone saved your life. More than that. Ethan looked past her into the ballroom where people were laughing and drinking and living their insulated lives. He gave his life, so I could keep mine. Victoria took another step closer. They were standing in the service hallway now, away from the crowd, away from the eyes that had watched them dance. Just 2 people in a corridor that smelled like catering and floor polish. Tell me, she said. Why? Because you asked me to dance when no one else would. Because you're the first person in 3 years to treat me like I'm not made of glass. Her voice was steady, but Ethan could hear the emotion underneath. Because I want to know. So Ethan told her, not the sanitized version he'd given the VA counselor, not the vague outline he'd offered the few people who'd asked. The real story. The one that still woke him up some nights, sweating and shaking. We were on patrol outside Kandahar. Nothing special. Same route we'd run 100 times. But that day something felt wrong. Our interpreter was nervous. The streets were too quiet. Ethan's hands clenched at his sides. I should have called it in, should have radioed back to base, but I was young and stupid, and I thought I was invincible. Victoria didn't interrupt. just listened. There was an IED buried in the road. We didn't see it until it was too late. The words came faster now, like a dam breaking. The explosion, I don't remember much, just heat and noise and then everything going sideways. When I came to, I was pinned under debris. Couldn't move, couldn't breathe right, and I could hear gunfire. The Taliban had been waiting. They knew we'd stop at the blast site. Your unit, Victoria said quietly. They were scattered, some dead, some wounded. Radio was destroyed. We were sitting ducks. Ethan's voice cracked. And then this man, Lieutenant James Hale. He came back for me. Everyone else was trying to find cover, trying to stay alive, and he ran straight into the kill zone, pulled me out from under 200 pounds of concrete and metal. Victoria's face had gone pale. Hale, she whispered. He got me to cover, kept pressure on my wounds, told me I was going to be fine, that help was coming, that I'd see my family again. Ethan could still see James's face, dirt-streaked and determined. Then he saw the second IED. Someone must have been watching, must have triggered it remote. It was maybe 10 feet from where we were hiding, from where the rest of the squad had regrouped. The hallway seemed to shrink. Victoria's hand had moved to her throat, fingers pressed against the diamonds there. James ran toward it, away from us, drew the fire so the rest could get clear. Ethan's eyes burned. The blast killed him instantly. But because he ran, because he put himself between that bomb and his men, the rest of us survived. 4 men who should have died that day went home to their families because James Hale decided his life was worth trading for theirs. Victoria's hand was shaking now. My uncle, she said. Her voice was barely audible. Uncle James, he died in Afghanistan 8 years ago. Ethan nodded. He'd known the moment she said her last name, the moment Robert Hale had introduced himself. Known and not known what to do with the information. He was a good man, the best I ever served with. After the medevac came, after they brought us back to base, his CO gave me his personal effects to send to his family. Most of it went to his parents, but there was a handkerchief, old, faded. James told me once it was his good luck charm, that his father had given it to him. My grandfather, Victoria whispered. He gave all his sons handkerchiefs when they enlisted, said it was tradition. The CO said I should keep it, that James would have wanted someone who lived to carry it forward. Ethan's hands were shaking now too. I've kept it with me ever since, 8 years, every day. A reminder that I'm living on borrowed time, that I owe James everything. Victoria was crying, quiet tears streaming down her face, tracing the line of her scar. We never knew, she said. We never knew exactly what happened, just that he died in combat, that he was a hero, but we never knew who he saved, who came home because of him. I tried to find you, your family. I wrote letters to the address the Army gave me, but they came back undeliverable. I didn't have names, just an address that didn't exist anymore. Ethan's voice was rough. I wanted to tell you what he did, what he meant, but I couldn't find the words even if I'd found you. How do you tell someone that their son, their brother, their uncle died so a stranger could live? Victoria reached out, her hand finding his arm. Her grip was tight, almost painful. You tell them the truth, that his life mattered, that his sacrifice wasn't meaningless. They stood there in the hallway, 2 people connected by a death neither of them had processed. Around them, the gala continued, music and laughter and the clink of glasses. A world that had no idea what was happening in this small corridor between the kitchen and the ballroom. My father doesn't know, Victoria said finally, wiping at her tears. About you, about James saving you. I wasn't sure if I should say anything. It's been so long, and I didn't want to. Ethan stopped. I didn't want to open old wounds. Our wounds never closed. Victoria's hand was still on his arm. We lost James, and we never got closure, never understood why. My father, he took it hard. James was his younger brother, his favorite. After James died, my father threw himself into work, built his empire like he could somehow earn back what he'd lost. And then I had my accident, and he had another thing he couldn't fix, couldn't control. Victoria woke up. You need to tell him. Her voice was fierce now, urgent. You need to tell him what James did, that you're alive because of him. My father has spent 8 years thinking his brother died for nothing in a war that doesn't make sense. But you're proof that it meant something, that James saved something real. Ethan thought about Robert Hale in the private lounge, pouring whiskey with hands that shook just slightly. A powerful man who couldn't protect his daughter from cruelty, who couldn't bring back his brother. I don't know if it'll help. It might make things worse. It won't. Victoria's certainty was absolute. Trust me, he needs to know. Okay? Ethan took a breath. Okay, but not tonight. This is your night. I don't want to... Now! Victoria turned, already moving back toward the ballroom. He's still here. Come with me. Victoria, wait! But she was already gone, black dress disappearing into the crowd. Ethan stood there for a moment, his heart pounding. This wasn't how this was supposed to go. He was supposed to collect his things, go home to Mia, forget about the gala and the dance and the brief moment where he'd felt like maybe he belonged somewhere other than the edges of other people's lives. Instead, he was walking back into the ballroom, following Victoria through the crowd. People stared, whispered. The server who danced with the scarred heiress was back. Some of them looked amused. Others looked scandalized. Ethan ignored them all. Victoria found her father near the bar, deep in conversation with 2 men in expensive suits. Robert looked up as she approached, his expression shifting from polite attention to concern when he saw her face. Victoria? What's wrong? I need you to come with me, both of you. She gestured to Ethan, who'd stopped a few feet back, suddenly aware of how out of place he looked. Please. It's important. Robert's eyes moved to Ethan, then back to his daughter. Something in her expression must have convinced him, because he excused himself from his conversation and followed her to a quieter corner of the ballroom, the same area where Victoria's table sat, still empty, still isolated. What's going on? Robert's voice was tight. Did something happen? The handkerchief Ethan carries, Victoria said. She was speaking quickly, words tumbling over each other. It was James's. Uncle James. Ethan was there, in Afghanistan, when he died. Robert went very still, the kind of still that comes before an explosion or a collapse. What? Tell him, Victoria said to Ethan. Tell him what you told me. So Ethan told the story again, slower this time, with more details. The patrol route, the IED, the firefight, James pulling him from the rubble, keeping him alive, running toward the second bomb to save his squad. Every word felt like pulling glass from a wound. Robert listened without interrupting. His face was carved from stone, expressionless. But his hands, resting on the back of a chair, were white-knuckled. He saved 4 of us that day, Ethan finished. I was the only one who made it home without permanent injuries. The others, they're alive, but they paid for it. Lost limbs, lost function. I walked away with some scars and nightmares. Because of James. Robert's voice, when he finally spoke, was barely above a whisper. You're the one he saved. One of them, yes, sir. He wrote letters. Before he died. We got them months later. He talked about his men. About wanting to keep them safe. Robert's hands were shaking now. He never said names. Just talked about trying to get everyone home. And then he didn't come home, and we never knew if it was worth it. If anyone actually made it because of him. 4 men came home, Ethan said. 4 families didn't lose husbands, fathers, sons. Because James decided we were worth saving. Something broke in Robert's expression. Not tears, not yet, but something close. You've been carrying his handkerchief for 8 years. Every day. And you never tried to find us? To tell us? I tried. I wrote to the address the army had, but the letters came back. I didn't know how else to reach you, and then time passed and I convinced myself it was better to let it go, that bringing it up would just hurt people who'd already heard enough. Ethan's voice cracked. I was wrong. I should have tried harder. Robert moved suddenly, closing the distance between them. For a moment, Ethan thought the older man might hit him. Instead, Robert pulled him into a fierce hug, the kind of embrace that said everything words couldn't. Thank you, Robert said into Ethan's shoulder. Thank you for living, for carrying him with you, for remembering. Ethan's eyes burned. He couldn't remember the last time someone had hugged him like this, like he mattered, like his existence was something to be grateful for instead of something to be managed or endured. When Robert finally pulled back, his eyes were wet. I need to see it. The handkerchief. It's in my locker. I can get it. No, tomorrow. Come to my office tomorrow. Bring it. Bring... Robert's voice broke. Bring anything you have. Photos, stories, memories. I want to know everything. Every detail, every moment. I don't have much, just the handkerchief and what I remember. That's enough. That's more than we've had for 8 years. Robert gripped Ethan's shoulder. You said you couldn't accept my job offer. I understand why. But let me do this. Let me know my brother's story. The real story, not the sanitized version the Army gave us. Ethan nodded. Okay. Yes, I can do that. Victoria was crying again, but smiling through it. I told you, she said to her father. I told you he needed to know. Robert looked at his daughter, really looked at her, and something passed between them. Understanding, maybe, or forgiveness. You did. Thank you, sweetheart. The word hung in the air, sweetheart. Ethan couldn't remember the last time he'd heard Robert Hale speak to Victoria with that kind of tenderness. Based on Victoria's expression, surprise mixed with something that might have been relief, she couldn't either. I should go, Ethan said quietly. I need to get home. My daughter? Of course, but tomorrow. 10 a.m., Hale Industries headquarters. Ask for me at the front desk. They'll bring you up. Robert was already pulling out his phone, making notes. And bring your daughter if you need to. I'd like to meet her. Thank you, sir. Robert. Call me Robert. The older man's voice was rough. You're family now. Whether you want to be or not, James saved you. That makes you part of this. Family. The word sat strange in Ethan's chest. He'd lost his own family years ago. Parents dead, siblings scattered, wife gone. It had been just him and Mia for so long that the idea of belonging to something bigger felt foreign. But standing here, with Robert gripping his hand and Victoria smiling at him through her tears, it didn't feel wrong, just unfamiliar. I'll be there, Ethan said. He left the gala for real this time, collected his things from the locker room, walked out into the Chicago night. The air was cold, October settling into the city with a bite that promised winter wasn't far behind. Ethan pulled his jacket tighter and started the long walk to the L station. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. This is Victoria. My father gave me your information. I hope that's okay. I wanted to say thank you again, for everything. Ethan stared at the message for a long moment before responding. It's okay. Thank you for listening, for making me tell the story. I think I needed to. Her response came quickly. I think we all did. See you tomorrow? Tomorrow. The train was nearly empty this late. Ethan found a seat, watched the city blur past the windows. His reflection stared back at him, tired and worn and somehow different than it had been this morning, like something had shifted. He thought about James Hale, about the man who'd given his life so Ethan could have this moment, this train ride, this quiet reflection, the chance to go home to his daughter and wake up tomorrow and live another day. I hope I'm making it worth it, Ethan said quietly to his reflection, to James, wherever he was. I hope you'd think I'm doing okay. The train rattled on. Ethan closed his eyes. Mrs. Chen was waiting when Ethan got home, knitting in the worn armchair by the window. She looked up when he came in, her expression softening. Long night, she observed. You have no idea. Ethan set down his keys, pulled out his wallet. What do I owe you? $20, but Ethan, Mrs. Chen set down her knitting. You look different. Something happened? Something happened. Ethan handed her the money, plus an extra 10. Something good, I think. I'm still figuring it out. Mrs. Chen took the money, studied his face. Good is good. You deserve good things. She stood, gathering her knitting. Mia asked about you before bed. I told her Daddy was working hard so she could have nice things. She said she'd rather have less nice things if it meant you could stay home more. The words hit Ethan square in the chest. She said that? 7 years old and already smarter than most adults. Mrs. Chen patted his arm. Think about it. What you're working for, whether it's worth what you're giving up. She left. Ethan stood in the quiet apartment, Mrs. Chen's words echoing. He'd been telling himself for years that everything he did was for Mia. The multiple jobs, the exhaustion, the constant hustle. Providing for her. giving her a better life than he'd had. But what if Mia didn't need a better life? What if she just needed him? He walked quietly to her room, pushed open the door. Mia was asleep, curled up with the stuffed elephant he'd won for her at a street fair 3 years ago. Her face was peaceful in the dim glow from her nightlight. Ethan sat on the edge of her bed, careful not to wake her. He thought about the day ahead, meeting with Robert Hale, telling more stories about James, maybe finding some closure for a wound he'd been carrying so long he'd forgotten it was there. And he thought about Victoria, the way she'd smiled when they danced, the strength in her voice when she told him to speak the truth, the feeling of being seen, really seen, for the first time in years. "Daddy?" Ethan startled. Mia was awake, blinking up at him in the darkness. "Hey, sweetheart, I didn't mean to wake you. You're home." She sat up, rubbed her eyes. "Mrs. Chen said you'd be late." "I was late. But I'm here now." Mia studied his face with the serious intensity only children could manage. "Did something happen at work?" "Yeah, something happened." "Good something or bad something?" Ethan thought about it. About getting fired from a job that barely paid. About dancing with a woman who'd been abandoned by everyone who should have cared. About telling a story he'd kept locked inside for 8 years. About the hug Robert Hale had given him, fierce and desperate and grateful. "Good something," he said finally. "Definitely good." Mia smiled, sleepy and trusting. "Good. You deserve good things, Daddy." The echo of Mrs. Chen's words made Ethan's throat tight. "So do you, baby. So do you. I have good things. I have you." Mia yawned, already drifting back towards sleep. That's the best thing. She was asleep again within minutes, her breathing evening out. Ethan sat there for a while longer, watching her, thinking about priorities, about what mattered. He'd spent so long trying to give Mia everything he thought she needed, but maybe what she needed most was just him, present, available, not exhausted from working himself into the ground. The meeting tomorrow could change things. Robert Hale had offered him a job once already. Maybe there'd be other opportunities. Maybe telling James's story could open doors Ethan hadn't even known existed. Or maybe it would change nothing except giving the Hale family some peace. Maybe Ethan would leave that office and go back to juggling part-time jobs and counting pennies. Either way, something had shifted tonight. Ethan had been invisible for so long, to the people he served, to the world that looked through him like he wasn't there. But Victoria had seen him. Robert had seen him. And in being seen, Ethan had started to remember who he was underneath the exhaustion and the struggle. He was a father, a veteran, a man who'd survived when he shouldn't have, someone who carried James Hale's memory not as a burden, but as a responsibility, to live well, to be kind, to matter. Ethan stood, kissed Mia's forehead, and left her room. He had 6 hours before he needed to be up. 6 hours to sleep before tomorrow arrived, and he'd have to face whatever came next. But for the first time in longer than he could remember, Ethan wasn't afraid of tomorrow. He was ready for it. The next morning came too fast. Ethan's alarm went off at 7, dragging him from dreams he couldn't quite remember. He showered, shaved, put on the one decent outfit he owned, khakis that were only slightly faded, a button-down shirt Mia had picked out last Christmas because it was fancy, like for important meetings, Daddy. She'd been more right than she knew. Getting Mia ready was the usual chaos. Lost shoes, forgotten homework, a lengthy debate about whether she really needed to wear a jacket when it was basically summer outside, Daddy, even though it's October. "It's 45 degrees, Ethan said, holding out her coat. "You'll freeze." "I'll be fine." "Mia," she sighed dramatically, the way only a 7-year-old could. "Fine, but only because you're using your serious voice." They took the bus to her school, Mia chattering about a class project on the solar system, while Ethan tried to quiet the nervousness building in his chest. The meeting with Robert Hale was in 2 hours. He'd brought the handkerchief, wrapped carefully in tissue paper, tucked into his jacket pocket where he could feel its weight. "You're being quiet," Mia observed as they approached her school. "Are you nervous about something?" "A little. I have an important meeting today." "With who?" "A man whose brother saved my life a long time ago, before you were born." Mia's eyes went wide. "Really? Like a superhero?" "Kind of like that, yeah." "And you're going to tell him thank you?" "Something like that." They reached the school gates. Other kids were streaming in, backpacks bouncing, voices loud. Ethan knelt down to Mia's level, straightened her jacket. "Have a good day, sweetheart. I'll pick you up at 3. Will you tell me about the meeting after? About the superhero?" "I will, I promise." Mia hugged him, fierce and quick, then ran off to join her friends. Ethan watched until she disappeared into the building, then checked his watch. An hour and a half. Enough time to get to the Loop, to Hale Industries headquarters, to compose himself. He took the red line downtown, watching the city wake up around him. Chicago in the morning was different than Chicago at night. Harder, more honest. People heading to jobs they might hate, lives they were trying to build, futures they hoped would be better than their present. Hale Industries was in a gleaming tower on Wacker Drive, all glass and steel and money. Ethan stood outside for a moment, staring up at the building. Somewhere up there, Robert Hale was waiting. Victoria was probably there too. And Ethan was about to walk into their world carrying a piece of cloth and a story that might or might not help them heal. The lobby was marble and minimalist design, a security desk, a bank of elevators, people in suits moving with purpose. Ethan approached the desk, feeling every thread of his cheap khakis. "I'm here to see Robert Hale. He's expecting me, Ethan Cole." The security guard checked his computer, nodded. "Mr. Hale's assistant will meet you at the elevator, 40th floor." The elevator ride was smooth and fast. Ethan's ears popped. He clutched the tissue-wrapped handkerchief and tried to remember how to breathe. The doors opened to another lobby, this one smaller and more intimate. Dark wood, soft lighting. A woman in her 50s, impeccably dressed, waiting with a professional smile. "Mr. Cole? I'm Margaret, Mr. Hale's executive assistant. He's ready for you, right this way." She led him through a maze of offices and conference rooms. People glanced up as they passed, curious. Ethan kept his eyes forward, following Margaret's brisk pace. They reached a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Chicago River. Margaret knocked once, opened the door. "Mr. Cole, sir." Robert Hale stood from behind a massive desk, but he wasn't alone. Victoria was there too, sitting in one of the leather chairs facing her father's desk. She smiled when she saw Ethan, and some of the tension in his chest eased. "Ethan, thank you for coming." Robert moved around the desk, shook Ethan's hand. His grip was firm, warm. "Please, sit. Coffee? Water?" "I'm fine, thank you." They settled into chairs arranged near the windows. The view was staggering, the river below, the city stretching out in every direction. Ethan had lived in Chicago his whole life, but had never seen it from this height. "I didn't sleep much last night," Robert said without preamble. "Kept thinking about James, about what you told us." His voice was rough with exhaustion. "I've spent 8 years trying not to think about him, trying to move forward, build things, make something that would last. But you can't build your way out of grief, can you?" "No, sir," Ethan said quietly. "I don't think you can." "Did you bring it? The handkerchief?" Ethan pulled the tissue paper from his pocket, unfolded it carefully. The handkerchief was faded green, worn soft from years of carrying. In one corner, barely visible, were the initials R.H., Robert Hale Sr., James's father. Robert took it with shaking hands, held it up to the light. "I remember when my father gave these to us. James was 18, about to ship out for basic training. Dad made this whole speech about honor and duty and coming home safe." His voice broke. James kept it with him through 2 tours. Wrote home about it. Said it was his good luck charm. "He had it with him that day," Ethan said, "when he pulled me out of the rubble. I remember seeing it in his pocket. After everything, the CO gave it to me. Said James would want someone who survived to keep it." Victoria was crying silently, tears tracking down her face. Robert folded the handkerchief carefully, held it against his chest. "Tell me about him," Robert said. "Not the hero, not the soldier. Tell me about James, the man you knew." So Ethan did. He talked about James's laugh, loud and infectious, about how he'd kept photos of his family taped inside his helmet, about the way he'd organized poker games to keep morale up, how he'd always let the new guys win their first few hands, about his terrible jokes and his love of bad coffee, and the way he'd talk about Chicago like it was the greatest city in the world. He missed deep dish pizza, Ethan said, smiling at the memory.
complained about it constantly, said the army should airdrop Lou Malnati's to the troops. It would do more for morale than any speech. Robert laughed, a sound caught between joy and sorrow. That sounds like James. He loved Lou Malnati's. Used to drag the whole family there every birthday.
They talked for over an hour. Ethan shared every memory he had, every detail. Robert and Victoria listened, hungry for pieces of a man they'd lost. Sometimes they laughed. Sometimes they cried. Sometimes they just sat in silence, letting the weight of James's absence fill the room. Finally, Robert stood, walked to the window. The city spread out below, indifferent and eternal. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for carrying him with you, for remembering, for coming here and giving us this. I should have come sooner." "You came when you were meant to." Robert turned back. "Now I need to ask you something, and I want you to really consider before you answer." Ethan's stomach tightened. "Okay. I want to create something in James's memory, a foundation, something that helps veterans transitioning back to civilian life. Job training, housing assistance, mental health support, all the things James would have cared about." Robert's eyes were intense. "And I want you to help me build it. Sir, I don't know anything about running a foundation. You know what veterans need because you are one. You know the struggles because you've lived them." Robert sat down again, leaning forward. "I'm not asking you to run it. I have people who can handle the logistics. I'm asking you to help shape it, to make sure it actually helps people instead of just making rich donors feel good about themselves." Ethan looked at Victoria. She nodded encouragingly. "This isn't charity," Robert continued. "This is a job, a real position with real responsibilities. And yes, it pays well. But more than that, it's a chance to make James's death mean something beyond the 4 men he saved that day. It's a chance to save others." The offer hung in the air. Ethan thought about Mia, about what she'd said last night, about how she'd rather have less nice things if it meant having more of him. A job like this, regular hours, meaningful work, a salary that would let him stop juggling part-time gigs, would give him both. Financial stability and time with his daughter. But was it right? Was he accepting something he'd earned or something he was being given out of grief and gratitude? "I need to think about it," Ethan said finally. Robert nodded. "I understand. Take your time. The foundation is going to take months to set up anyway, but Ethan," he paused, "James saved your life so you could live it, really live it, not just survive. If this opportunity helps you do that, then you're not taking charity. You're honoring what he gave you." The words settled into Ethan's chest, heavy and true. "I'll think about it," Ethan repeated. "Seriously, I promise." "That's all I ask." They talked for another 20 minutes before Ethan glanced at his watch and realized he needed to leave if he was going to make it to Mia's school on time. Robert walked him to the elevator, Victoria following a few steps behind. "Think about what I said," Robert told him. "No pressure, but the offer stands." "I will. Thank you." The elevator doors were closing when Victoria suddenly stepped forward, hand shooting out to stop them. "Wait, can I walk you out? I need some air anyway." Robert looked between them, something unreadable crossing his face. Then he nodded. "Of course. Take your time, sweetheart." Victoria stepped into the elevator with Ethan. The doors closed. They descended in silence for several floors before she spoke. "He hasn't called me that in years," she said quietly. "Sweetheart, not since before the accident. He loves you, you can see it. I know he does, but love and knowing how to show it are different things." But Victoria was looking at her reflection in the polished elevator doors. "After the accident, everything changed. The way he looked at me, like I was broken and he didn't know how to fix me. So he stopped trying, stopped really seeing me. And last night changed that? Maybe. Or maybe it just reminded him that I'm still here, still his daughter, not just his damaged daughter." She turned to face Ethan. "You did that. By asking me to dance, but by treating me like I was normal." "You are normal." "No, I'm not, and that's okay." Victoria's hand went to her scar, not hiding it this time, just acknowledging it. "I'm different now. The accident changed me, made me harder, more careful. I used to be so open, so trusting. Now I see the worst in people before I see the best."
The elevator reached the lobby. They stepped out into the marble expanse, moving toward the glass doors that led to the street.
Can I ask you something? Victoria said as they pushed through the doors into the October cold. Sure. Why did you really ask me to dance? And don't say it was just kindness. There were other people at that gala who could have used kindness. But you chose me. Ethan thought about it as they walked. The street was busy with lunch crowds, people rushing past with coffee cups and phones pressed to their ears. He and Victoria moved slowly, letting the crowd flow around them. My daughter came home crying a few weeks ago, Ethan said finally. Some kid made fun of her shoes, called her poor. And I saw her face, the way she tried to hide how much it hurt, and I thought, this is what the world does. It finds your weakest point and pushes, makes you feel small. So you felt sorry for me. No, I felt angry for you. There's a difference. Ethan stopped walking, turned to face her. Pity is condescending. It puts you above someone, looking down. Anger is different. Anger is standing beside someone and saying the way they're being treated is wrong. Victoria studied his face. You're a good person, Ethan Cole. I'm a person who's made a lot of mistakes and is trying to do better. That's not the same thing. Maybe it's better than the same thing. She smiled, small but genuine. Do you want to get coffee? I know a place near here. Nothing fancy. Ethan checked his watch. He had 45 minutes before he needed to be at Mia's school. Yeah, okay. The coffee shop was cramped and loud, the kind of place that served burnt drip coffee in paper cups and didn't care about ambiance. They found a table near the window, wedged between a student typing furiously on a laptop and two construction workers on break. This is perfect, Victoria said, wrapping her hands around her cup. I never get to go places like this anymore. Why not? Because everywhere I go, people recognize me. Robert Hale's daughter, the one with the scar. And they either stare or they very carefully don't stare, which is somehow worse. She took a sip of coffee, made a face. This is terrible coffee. The worst, Ethan agreed. I love it. They sat there for a while, not talking, just watching the city move past the window. It was comfortable in a way Ethan hadn't expected. Usually, silence with someone new felt like an obligation to fill it. But with Victoria, the quiet felt natural. Can I tell you something? Victoria said eventually. Something I haven't told anyone. Yeah. I wanted to die. After the accident. Not right away, but later, when I saw what I looked like. When I realized that everyone who looked at me would see the scar first and me second. Her voice was steady, matter of fact. I didn't try anything. I'm not that brave, but I wanted to. Wanted to just not exist anymore. Ethan's chest tightened. What stopped you? My father. The way he looked at me. Like losing me would break him completely. Victoria's laugh was hollow. Ironic, right? I stayed alive for someone who could barely look at me, but I saw it in his eyes. If I died, he'd have lost both me and James. That would have been the end of him. So you stayed. I stayed, and I learned to live with it. The scar, the stares, the loneliness. She met his eyes. But I wasn't really living, just existing, going through the motions, until last night. What changed last night? You asked me to dance, and for 3 minutes I wasn't the scarred heiress. I was just Victoria, a woman at a party, dancing with a man who saw me. Her voice caught. Do you know how long it's been since someone saw me? Ethan reached across the table, covered her hand with his. I see you. Victoria's eyes filled. I know, that's why this is so hard. Why what's hard? This. Whatever this is. Because in a week, in a month, you'll see me the way everyone else does. You'll see the scar and the damage and the broken parts, and it'll change things. No, it won't. How can you know that? Because I've got my own scars, Ethan said. Mine just don't show on my face. I've got anxiety that keeps me up at night. I've got guilt about James, about being the one who lived. I've got a failed marriage and a daughter I'm terrified I'm screwing up. He squeezed her hand. Everyone's damaged, Victoria. The only difference is some people's damage is visible. She was fully crying now, quiet tears streaming down her face. A few people glanced over, then quickly looked away. Victoria didn't seem to notice. I don't know how to do this, she said. How to let someone in. I've been alone so long. Me too. So we'll figure it out together. Badly, probably. But together. Victoria laughed through her tears. You barely know me. I know you're strong. I know you survived something that would have destroyed other people. I know you care about your father even when he hurts you. I know you smiled when we danced. Ethan paused. That's enough to start with. They sat there, hands linked across the cheap coffee shop table, until Ethan's phone alarm went off, reminding him about school pickup. I have to go get Mia, he said reluctantly. Can I meet her? The question came out fast, like Victoria was afraid if she didn't ask immediately, she'd lose her nerve. Someday. Not today, obviously. But someday? Yeah, I'd like that. They left the coffee shop together, walking back toward the L station. The afternoon sun was weak, filtered through clouds. Chicago was moving into that gray period before winter, where everything felt suspended between seasons. Thank you, Victoria said, as they reached the station entrance. For the coffee, for listening, for everything. Thank you for saying yes. To the dance, to coffee, to being honest. She kissed his cheek, quick and soft. Call me. When you've made your decision about my father's offer, or before, or just because. I will. Ethan watched her walk away, black coat disappearing into the crowd. Then he descended into the station, his mind spinning with everything that had happened in the last 24 hours. He made it to Mia's school with 3 minutes to spare. She came running out with her usual energy, backpack bouncing, her face lighting up when she saw him. Daddy, you're here! Of course I'm here. When am I not here? You were late last Tuesday, Mia informed him seriously. Because the bus broke down, remember? You're right. I was late last Tuesday. They started walking toward the bus stop, Mia chattering about her day. Something about the solar system project, about how Jupiter had the most moons, about how her friend Emma said that wasn't fair because Earth deserved more moons. Did you have your meeting? Mia asked eventually. With the superhero's brother? I did. And? Was it good? Ethan thought about Robert's face when he'd held James's handkerchief, about Victoria's tears in the coffee shop, about the job offer that could change everything or complicate everything or both. It was good, he said. Hard, but good. Did you tell him thank you for his brother saving you? I did. I told him everything. Mia was quiet for a moment, processing. Do you think the superhero would be happy that you're still alive? The question hit Ethan hard. He stopped walking, knelt down to Mia's level. Yeah, baby, I think he would be. Good. Because I'm happy you're still alive. Really happy. Ethan pulled her into a hug, fierce and tight. Me too, sweetheart. Me too. That night, after Mia was asleep, Ethan sat at his kitchen table with a beer he didn't drink and a notebook he didn't write in. Just sat there, thinking. Robert's offer kept circling in his mind. A real job, benefits, stability, the chance to help other veterans, to make James's death mean something beyond that one day in Afghanistan. But it also meant accepting something from the Hale family, becoming tied to them, to Victoria. And what if that changed things between them? What if instead of being equals, he became the charity case, the veteran they helped out of obligation? His phone buzzed, a text from Victoria. Still thinking? Ethan typed back, yeah, you? Always. It's exhausting. Tell me about it. A pause, then, my father really wants you to say yes. He's been talking about the foundation non-stop since you left. I haven't seen him this energized about something in years. That's good, right? It's good. But I don't want you to say yes just because it would make him happy. You should say yes because it's right for you and Mia. Ethan stared at the message. The fact that Victoria was thinking about Mia, about what was best for his daughter, rather than just what her father wanted, said something. I'm going to sleep on it, he typed. Make a decision tomorrow. Fair enough. Good night, Ethan. Good night. But sleep didn't come easy. Ethan lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, running scenarios. If he took the job, he could give Mia a better life. New shoes, a better apartment, maybe even save for college. He could stop working himself into exhaustion, be present for school events and bedtime stories and all the small moments he'd been missing. If he didn't take the job, he'd keep struggling, keep juggling part-time work, keep barely making it. But he'd also keep his independence, keep the pride of building his own life. Somewhere around 2 in the morning, exhaustion won over anxiety, and Ethan fell into restless sleep. He dreamed of Afghanistan, of James pulling him from the rubble. But this time, when James ran toward the second IED, Ethan ran after him, tried to stop him, tried to change what had already happened. In the dream, James turned back, smiled. "Let me go, Cole. This is what I'm supposed to do." "But you'll die." "Maybe, but you'll live. That's the trade. Now make it worth it." Ethan woke with a start, heart pounding. The apartment was quiet except for the usual city sounds filtering through the walls. He checked his phone. 4:30 in the morning. Too early to be awake. Too late to fall back asleep properly. He got up, made coffee, sat at the kitchen table again. Pulled out the notebook this time. On one page he wrote reasons to say yes. Started listing Mia's future, financial stability, helping veterans, honoring James, making a difference. On the facing page, reasons to say no. That list was shorter: pride, independence, fear of failure. Ethan stared at the list. The yes column was longer, more practical, better for Mia, but the no column had weight. Real weight. His phone buzzed. Another text from Victoria, sent in the middle of the night. "Can't sleep either? Or are you a normal person who sleeps at reasonable hours?" Ethan smiled despite his exhaustion. "Can't sleep. Been up for an hour." "Me too. Keep thinking about yesterday, about the gala, the coffee shop, about how strange it is that one dance can change so much. Strange good or strange bad? Strange terrifying, strange exciting, strange like standing at the edge of something and not knowing if you should jump." Ethan knew exactly what she meant. They texted back and forth for the next hour, about nothing and everything. Victoria told him about growing up as Robert Hale's daughter, the pressure and privilege mixing in ways that never quite balanced. Ethan told her about meeting Mia's mother in college, about the marriage that had fallen apart under the weight of his PTSD and her inability to handle his darkness. "She wanted someone whole," Ethan typed. "I couldn't be that person." "No one's whole," Victoria replied. "We're all just pieces trying to fit together." By the time the sun started rising, Ethan had made his decision. He waited until 8 to call Robert Hale. Margaret answered, professional and efficient. "Mr. Cole, Mr. Hale said you might call. Let me transfer you." Robert picked up immediately. "Ethan, have you thought about my offer?" "I have, and I want to say yes, but with conditions." A pause. "Go on." "First, I need this to be a real job, not charity. If I'm not performing, if the foundation isn't working, you have to be willing to let me go. No special treatment because of James." "Agreed." "Second, I need flexibility. I'm a single father. Mia comes first, always. If that means leaving early for school events or missing meetings for parent-teacher conferences, I need you to be okay with that." "More than okay. Family should come first." "Third," Ethan took a breath, "whatever's happening between me and Victoria, it can't be connected to this job. We need to keep those things separate." Robert's voice was careful when he answered. "Is something happening between you and Victoria?" "I don't know yet. Maybe, but if it is, it needs to be because we want it. Not because I work for you. Not because of James. Just because." "I understand. And I agree. Victoria's happiness is worth more to me than this foundation." Robert paused. "Is that all?" "One more thing. I want to hire other veterans. People who are struggling the way I struggled. Give them real opportunities, not just handouts." "That was always the plan, but I'm glad you said it anyway." Robert's voice was warm. "So we have a deal?" Ethan thought of James, of the dream where he'd told Ethan to make it worth it, of Mia asking if the superhero would be happy that her daddy was still alive. "We have a deal." "Good. Can you start next week? I want to move quickly on this. I'll need to give notice at my current jobs, arrange childcare, take 2 weeks. Get your affairs in order. Margaret will send over the paperwork and details." Robert hesitated. "Thank you, Ethan, for saying yes, for giving me a way to honor my brother that actually matters. Thank you for the opportunity." After they hung up, Ethan sat there for a moment, letting it sink in. He'd just accepted a job that would change his and Mia's life. No more juggling 3 part-time positions. No more counting pennies, no more exhaustion that went bone deep. He was terrified. But underneath the fear was something else, something that felt like hope. Mia woke up half an hour later, stumbling into the kitchen with her hair sticking up in every direction. "Morning, Daddy." "Morning, baby. Want pancakes?" "Always." As Ethan mixed batter and heated the griddle, Mia climbed onto her usual chair, watching him with sleepy eyes. "You look happy," she observed. "Did something good happen?" "Yeah, something really good." Ethan poured batter onto the griddle, watched it bubble and spread. "I got a new job, a real one, with benefits and everything." Mia's face lit up. "Really? What kind of job?" "Helping veterans. People who were in the military like I was. Helping them find jobs and homes and support." "Like a superhero helper?" "Exactly like a superhero helper." Mia was quiet for a moment, processing. "Does that mean you'll be home more?" "Yeah, baby, it does." "Good." She smiled wide and genuine. "I like it when you're home." Ethan flipped the pancakes, his throat tight. "Me too." They ate breakfast together, Mia chattering about her plans for the weekend, about how she wanted to go to the park even though it was cold, about how Emma's mom said they could have a play date if it was okay with Ethan. Normal things. Small things. The kind of moments Ethan had been missing while working himself ragged. After breakfast, he called his 3 part-time employers and gave his 2-week notice. 2 of them were understanding. The third, the loading dock supervisor at a warehouse where Ethan worked overnight shifts twice a week, was less so. "You're leaving me hanging, Cole. I need reliable people." "I understand, and I'm giving you 2 weeks to find someone." "That's fair." "Fair? You know how hard it is to find good workers?" "I know how hard it is to work 3 jobs to support a kid. I found something better. I'm taking it." He hung up before the supervisor could say anything else, felt a flash of guilt, then let it go. He'd done his time at that warehouse, breaking his back for minimum wage and no benefits. He didn't owe them anything beyond the 2 weeks he'd promised. His phone rang. "Victoria." "I heard," she said when he answered. "My father just told me you said yes." I said yes. "How do you feel?" "Terrified. Excited. Like I might throw up." Victoria laughed. "That sounds about right. Want to celebrate? Lunch tomorrow. I know a place that serves slightly better coffee than yesterday's disaster." "Can't tomorrow. I'm on shift at the restaurant until 3. "But Sunday?" "Mia has a play date in the morning. I'll be free around noon." "Sunday works." "And Ethan?" "Yeah?" "I'm glad you said yes. Not for my father. For you. You deserve this." After they hung up, Ethan looked around his apartment, the place he'd lived for 3 years with its peeling paint and unreliable heat. The place he'd raised Mia alone, counting every dollar, making every meal stretch. Soon they could move. Find somewhere better. Somewhere with heat that actually worked and walls that didn't let in every sound from the neighbors. But looking at it now, Ethan felt a weird affection. This apartment had sheltered them, kept them safe. It hadn't been much, but it had been enough. The weekend passed in a blur of ordinary moments. Saturday at the park with Mia, pushing her on the swings until his arms ached. Sunday morning dropping her at Emma's house for the play date. Emma's mom telling him to take his time, enjoy some peace. He met Victoria at a cafe in Lincoln Park, nicer than the place they'd been before, but still casual enough that Ethan didn't feel out of place. She was waiting at a table outside despite the cold, wrapped in a cream-colored coat, her face turned up to the weak October sun. "Hi," she said when she saw him. "Hi." They ordered coffee and pastries neither of them ate, too busy talking. Victoria told him about her week, about her father's sudden burst of energy around the foundation planning, about how he'd already started reaching out to contacts and lining up potential donors. "He's like a different person," Victoria said. "More like he used to be, before James died, before my accident. Like he finally has something to fight for instead of just something to build." "That's good, right?" "It's good, but it's also a lot of pressure on you. If this foundation becomes his new obsession, his new way to not deal with grief..." She stopped. "I'm sorry, that's not fair. You just said yes. I shouldn't be adding worries." "No, I get it. I've been thinking about it too." Ethan wrapped his hands around his coffee cup. "But here's the thing. If the foundation helps even one veteran find their footing, it's worth it. If it gives your father a way to heal, that's a bonus. But the work itself matters. You really believe that? I have to. Otherwise, what's the point? Victoria studied him, her expression soft. You're a good man, Ethan Cole. You keep saying that. I'm starting to think you might be wrong. I'm not. She reached across the table, took his hand. I've spent 3 years around people who are rich and powerful and connected, who have everything anyone could want, and most of them are hollow, empty. They fill their lives with things and accomplishments and status, but there's nothing underneath. And I'm different? You're real. You struggle and you're scared and you don't have all the answers. But you show up anyway. For your daughter, for strangers at a party, for a man who died saving you 8 years ago. Victoria's grip tightened. That's not nothing. That's everything. Ethan didn't know what to say to that, so he just held her hand and watched the city move around them and tried to believe that maybe, just maybe, he was doing something right. They talked until Ethan had to leave to pick up Mia. Victoria walked with him to the L station, neither of them quite ready to say goodbye. I want you to meet her, Ethan said as they reached the entrance. Mia, for real, not just picking her up from school. Actually spend time with her. Are you sure? That's a big step. I know, but I think she'd like you, and I think... He paused, trying to find the words. I think this is going somewhere. You and me. And if it is, Mia should be part of it from the start. Victoria's eyes were bright. Okay, yes, I'd love to meet her. Next weekend? We usually go to the aquarium. You could come with us. The aquarium. I haven't been there since I was a kid. It's Mia's favorite place. She wants to be a marine biologist when she grows up. This week, anyway. Last week, she wanted to be an astronaut. She sounds amazing. She is. She's everything good about me without any of the broken parts. Then I can't wait to meet her. They said goodbye, Victoria heading back toward the cafe, Ethan descending into the station. He rode the L north, his mind already on Mia, on picking her up, on hearing about her play date with Emma. But part of him stayed with Victoria, with the way she'd looked at him when he'd talked about believing in the Foundation's work. The way she'd called him real, like that was the highest compliment she could give. Maybe it was. Ethan picked up Mia from Emma's house, listened to her excited recap of their afternoon. They'd built a fort, apparently, and made up a game about princesses who were also scientists, and eaten pizza that Emma's mom ordered, even though it wasn't dinner time yet. Can Emma come over next week? Mia asked as they walked home. Sure, but I actually wanted to ask you something about next weekend. What? How would you feel if someone came with us to the aquarium, a new friend of mine? Mia's eyes went wide with interest. A friend or a special friend? Ethan suppressed a smile. Maybe both. Her name is Victoria. She's nice. I think you'd like her. Is she your girlfriend? I don't know yet. Maybe. Would that be okay? Mia thought about it seriously, her face scrunched up in concentration. Will she be nice to you? Yeah, baby. She's nice to me. And she wants to see the aquarium? She does. Then, okay, she can come. Mia paused. Does she like penguins? Because the penguins are the best part. I'll make sure to ask her. That night, Ethan texted Victoria. Mia says you can come to the aquarium, but only if you like penguins. It's very important, apparently. Victoria's response came quickly. Penguins are my favorite. Tell Mia she has excellent taste. Ethan smiled at his phone like an idiot, like a man who hadn't smiled like this in years, like someone who was maybe, possibly, starting to believe that good things could happen to him too. The week crawled by with the kind of slowness that comes from anticipating something. Ethan worked his final shifts at the restaurant and the warehouse, collected his last paychecks, tried not to think too hard about the fact that everything was changing. At night, after Mia was asleep, he'd lie awake and text Victoria. Nothing profound, just small pieces of their days. She'd send him photos of terrible corporate lunches. He'd send her pictures of Mia's latest drawings, elaborate scenes of underwater cities populated by scientist mermaids. She's got talent, Victoria texted one night. She's got imagination. Not sure that's the same thing. It's better. Saturday morning arrived cold and clear. Ethan woke early, too nervous to sleep. He made pancakes again, Mia's favorite, and tried not to let his anxiety show. You're being weird, Mia observed, drowning her pancakes in syrup. I'm not being weird. You made the pancakes into perfect circles. You never make them into perfect circles. Usually they look like blobs. Maybe I'm getting better at cooking. Or maybe you're nervous about Victoria. Mia gave him a knowing look that was way too old for 7. It's okay to be nervous, Daddy. I'm nervous too. You are? A little. What if she doesn't like me? Ethan set down his spatula, came around to crouch beside her chair. Baby, that's impossible. You're the best kid in the world. She's going to love you. You have to say that. You're my dad. I say it because it's true. He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. But if you're nervous, we can cancel. Just go to the aquarium, you and me, like always. Mia shook her head. No, I want to meet her. What if she's different than I think? What if she's mean or boring or doesn't actually like penguins? Then we'll have a nice day anyway, and that'll be that. But I don't think she's any of those things. How do you know? Because she asked me to dance when no one else would. That tells you something about a person. Mia thought about this while chewing her pancakes. Okay, but if she doesn't like penguins, I'm going to be really disappointed. They met Victoria at the entrance to the shed aquarium at 10. She was early, standing near the steps, wearing jeans and a blue sweater that made her eyes look greener than Ethan remembered. When she saw them approaching, her whole face brightened, then immediately tensed with what looked like nerves. Hi, she said when they reached her. You must be Mia. Mia studied her with the serious intensity of a child evaluating an adult. You're Victoria, the one who likes penguins. I am. Penguins are excellent. What's your favorite kind? Emperor penguins. They're the biggest. Mine are rockhopper penguins. They have the funny hair. Mia paused. That's a good scar. Ethan's stomach dropped. Mia, it's okay. Victoria knelt down to Mia's level. Thank you. I got it in a car accident. It hurt a lot. Does it still hurt? Not the scar, but sometimes my feelings about it hurt. Mia nodded, like this made perfect sense. Emma's brother broke his arm last year and it stopped hurting, but he still doesn't like to look at it because it reminds him of when he fell. That's exactly right. Okay. Mia seemed satisfied with this exchange. Can we go see the penguins now? The aquarium was crowded with weekend families, kids pressing against glass tanks, parents reading information placards in patient voices. Ethan bought their tickets, feeling the weird displacement of having Victoria there, of this new thing overlapping with something that had been just his and Mia's. But Mia grabbed Victoria's hand without hesitation, pulling her toward the penguin exhibit with the kind of enthusiasm she usually reserved for Ethan alone. They feed them at 10:30, Mia explained. We have to get a good spot or we won't see. They wedged themselves into a spot near the front of the viewing area. The penguins were already active, waddling around their rocky habitat, diving in and out of the water. Mia pressed her face against the glass, narrating each penguin's activities like a sports commentator. That one's showing off. See how he's splashing? He wants everyone to notice him. And that one over there, she's shy. She stays in the corner, but she's the smartest one, I can tell. Victoria watched Mia with something like wonder on her face. How do you know which one is the smartest? Because she's watching everyone else, learning from them. That's what smart people do. You're absolutely right. Victoria glanced at Ethan over Mia's head. Her expression said everything. This kid, your kid, she's incredible. Ethan felt something in his chest crack open. The way Victoria was looking at his daughter, not with the forced politeness adults sometimes used with kids, but with genuine interest. Like Mia's observations about penguins actually mattered. The feeding started. A staff member and waiters waded into the penguin habitat with a bucket of fish. The penguins went wild, squawking and diving. Mia bounced on her toes, narrating the entire spectacle. Look! The shy one got a fish before the show-off. I told you she was smart. They spent 2 hours wandering through exhibits. Mia showed Victoria her favorite spots. The jellyfish tanks with their hypnotic pulsing, the touch pools where you could feel sea stars, the Caribbean reef with its impossible colors. At each stop, she'd share some fact she'd learned on previous visits, mixing real information with wild speculation. Sea turtles can live to be 100 years old, maybe even 200. Scientists aren't sure because turtles don't tell anyone their age.
That makes sense, Victoria said seriously. It's rude to ask. Exactly. Around noon, they stopped at the aquarium cafe for overpriced sandwiches and chips. Mia was still buzzing with energy, talking a mile a minute about everything they'd seen. The octopus was hiding, but I saw one tentacle. Did you see it, Victoria? I did. Very sneaky. Octopuses are the sneakiest. They can change colors and squeeze through tiny spaces and solve puzzles. Mia took a huge bite of her sandwich, chewed thoughtfully. If I was an animal, I'd be an octopus. Why? Ethan asked. Because they're smart and nobody expects them to be. People think they're just weird looking, but they're actually geniuses. Victoria's hand found Ethan's under the table, squeezed. The message was clear. She gets it. Being underestimated. Being more than people think. After lunch, Mia started to slow down, the morning's excitement catching up with her. They sat on a bench near the Amazon exhibit, watching fish dart through mangrove roots. I'm glad you came, Mia said to Victoria, leaning against Ethan's side. You're nice. I'm glad I came too. You're an excellent tour guide. Are you going to be Daddy's girlfriend? Mia, Ethan warned. What? I'm just asking. Mia looked up at Victoria with complete innocence. Because if you are, that's okay. But you have to promise to be nice to him. He's had a hard time. Victoria's eyes were suddenly bright. I promise, your dad is one of the best people I've ever met. I know. That's why I'm making sure you know it too. They left the aquarium around 2, Mia dragging her feet, exhausted but happy. Ethan suggested ice cream despite the cold. They found a place a few blocks away, crammed into a booth meant for 2 people, sharing bites of 2 sweet flavors. This is the best day, Mia announced, chocolate ice cream on her chin. We should do this every week. Every week might be too much, Ethan said, wiping her face with a napkin. Once a month, Mia negotiated. We'll see. But looking at Victoria across the table at the way she was smiling at both of them, Ethan thought maybe once a month wasn't too much at all. They walked Victoria to her car, parked in a garage 2 blocks over. Mia was holding both their hands, swinging between them like a bridge. Thank you for today, Victoria said when they reached her car. I had the best time. Me too. Mia released their hands to give Victoria a spontaneous hug. You can come to the aquarium whenever you want. Victoria hugged her back, her eyes meeting Ethan's over Mia's head. I'll take you up on that. After Mia stepped back, Victoria leaned in and kissed Ethan's cheek. Quick and soft, but enough that his face went warm. I'll call you tonight, she said quietly. I'll answer. They watched her drive away, Mia waving until the car disappeared around a corner. I like her, Mia declared as they started walking toward the L. She's pretty and nice, and she really does like penguins. I could tell. Yeah? How could you tell? Because she didn't fake it. Adults always fake it when they're trying to be nice to kids. They say things are interesting when they're really bored. But Victoria actually cared about the penguins. Ethan marveled again at his daughter's ability to see through people. You're pretty smart, you know that? I know. I get it from you. Pretty sure you get it from you. Can't it be both? That night, after Mia was in bed, Ethan's phone rang. Victoria. She's asleep? Victoria asked when he answered. Out cold, the aquarium always wipes her out. She's amazing, Ethan, truly. You've done such a good job with her. I'm just trying not to screw her up too badly. You're doing more than that. She's confident and curious and kind. That doesn't happen by accident. Ethan felt his throat tighten. Thank you. For today. For being so good with her. I wasn't being good with her. I was being myself. She made it easy. Victoria paused. Can I ask you something? Always. Are we doing this? Really doing this? Ethan knew what she meant. Not just dating, not just seeing where things went, really trying. Building something that involved his daughter and her father and all the complications that came with both. Yeah, he said. I think we are. That terrifies me. Me too. But I want to anyway. Me too. Victoria laughed, shaky but genuine. Okay then, we're doing this. We're doing this. They talked for another hour about nothing important, about Mia's commentary on the penguins,
About Victoria's upcoming week, meetings she was dreading, a charity board she was considering joining. Normal things. Couple things. It felt right. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur. Ethan finished his notice at his old jobs, cleaned out his locker at the warehouse for the last time, said goodbye to coworkers he'd worked alongside but never really knew, started his new position at the foundation, which didn't have an office yet but operated out of a conference room at Hale Industries headquarters. Robert threw himself into the work with the kind of intensity Ethan associated with military operations. They met with lawyers about incorporation, with accountants about funding structures, with potential board members all carefully vetted by Robert for their genuine commitment to veteran issues. "I don't want this to be a vanity project," Robert said during one of their planning sessions. "I want it to actually help people." "Then we need to listen to veterans," Ethan said. "Not talk at them, not decide what they need. Actually listen." "How do we do that?" "Start with focus groups. Bring in veterans from different backgrounds, different struggles. Hear their stories. Find out what's actually missing, what would have actually helped them." Robert nodded, making notes. "Good. Yes, let's do that." They were building something real, something that honored James not with empty platitudes, but with actual action. Ethan felt the weight of it, the responsibility, but also the rightness. Meanwhile, he saw Victoria when they could manage it. Dinner one night after Mia was asleep, Mrs. Chen agreeing to stay late. Coffee before work on mornings when Mia had early drop-off at school. Stolen moments that felt both too brief and perfectly sufficient. She integrated into his life slowly, carefully. Came to pick up Mia from school one afternoon when Ethan was stuck in a meeting. Showed up at their apartment with takeout on a Friday night, the three of them eating Chinese food straight from the containers and watching a movie Mia picked. "This is nice," Victoria said quietly while Mia was absorbed in the screen. "Being here with you both. It feels normal. Normal good or normal boring? Normal perfect. But not everything was perfect, because nothing ever was." 3 weeks after the gala, Ethan got a call from one of his old army buddies, Marcus Chen, one of the 3 other men James had saved that day. "Cole, been trying to track you down. Heard through the grapevine you connected with the Hale family." Yeah, I did. How'd you hear?" "Army Network. Someone saw the announcement about the foundation. Put 2 and 2 together." Marcus's voice was rough. "Is it true? They're starting something for vets?" "They are. We are. I'm helping run it." A long pause. "That's good, man. That's real good. James would have liked that. How are you doing, Marcus? Last I heard you were in Atlanta." "Was in Atlanta. Lost that job. Been bouncing around since. Currently crashing with my sister in Rockford." Another pause. "It's been hard, Cole. Coming home. Adjusting. You know." Ethan knew. "You looking for work? Looking for anything? Work? Purpose? A reason to get out of bed?" Marcus's laugh was hollow. "Sounds pathetic, right?" "Sounds honest. Listen, the foundation isn't operational yet. But when it is, you call me. We'll find something. Get you back on your feet." "I don't need charity." "It's not charity. It's what James would have wanted. Us taking care of each other." Marcus was quiet for a long time. "Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'll call." After they hung up, Ethan sat with the phone in his hand, thinking about Marcus. About the other 2 men James had saved. About the thousands of veterans out there struggling the way Marcus was struggling, the way Ethan had struggled before Robert's offer changed everything. The foundation couldn't help everyone, but it could help some, and some was better than none. That night he told Victoria about the call. "You're going to hire him," she said. "Not a question." "When we're ready, yeah. If there's a position that fits, my father will say yes. He trusts your judgment on this. It's not about trust. It's about Marcus deserving a chance the same way I got a chance." Victoria studied him. "You feel guilty, that you're the one who landed on your feet." "Shouldn't I? 3 other guys from that day are struggling. I'm the one who happened to dance with the right person at the right party." "No. You're the one who had the courage to ask someone to dance when everyone else was too afraid or too cruel. You're the one who carried James's memory for 8 years. You're the one who showed up when Robert asked. You earned this, Ethan." "Did I? Or did I just get lucky?" "Can it be both?" The echo of Mia's words from weeks ago made Ethan smile despite himself. Yeah, I guess it can. But the conversation with Marcus stayed with him, became the driving force as the foundation took shape. Every decision, every policy, every program they designed, Ethan thought about Marcus, about men and women like him who'd served their country and come home to a world that didn't know what to do with them. A month after the gala, they held their first focus group, 15 veterans, all backgrounds, all struggles. Ethan and Robert sat and listened as they talked about what they needed. Not handouts, not pity, real opportunities. Mental health support without stigma. Job training that actually led to jobs. Housing assistance that didn't make them feel like charity cases. We want to contribute, one woman said. She was maybe 30, missing her left leg below the knee. We don't want to be projects. We want to be part of something. Robert took notes furiously. Ethan just listened, storing every word. After the session ended, Robert looked shaken. I had no idea, he said quietly, how hard it was, what they face. Most people don't, that's the problem. We have to do better, not just with the foundation, as a country, as people. Yeah, we do. Robert looked at him. Thank you for pushing me on this, for making sure we do it right. Thank you for letting me. That night, Victoria came over after Mia was asleep. She'd been at the focus group too, sitting in the back, observing quietly. She'd cried during some of the stories. Ethan had seen her wiping her eyes when she thought no one was looking. Those people, she said now, curled up beside him on his worn couch. The things they've been through, the way they keep trying anyway. Yeah. It puts things in perspective, my accident, my scar. I've spent 3 years feeling sorry for myself. But those people, they've lost limbs, lost friends, lost themselves, and they're still fighting. Your pain doesn't disappear just because someone else's is different. I know, but maybe I've been too focused on what I lost instead of what I still have. She looked at him. You helped me see that, by treating me like I was more than my scar. You're more than your scar. I'm starting to believe that. She kissed him, soft and slow. Thank you. They sat together in the quiet apartment, the city sounds filtering through the walls. This was Ethan's life now, his daughter sleeping in the next room, a woman he was falling for beside him, work that mattered waiting in the morning. It wasn't perfect. It was complicated and messy and sometimes overwhelming, but it was good, really good. The foundation launched officially in December, 2 months after the gala, a small ceremony, invitation only, held at Hale Industries. Veterans from the focus group, potential donors, board members, press. Ethan stood at the podium, looking out at the crowd, and felt the weight of James's handkerchief in his pocket. He'd taken to carrying it again, a reminder of why this mattered. 8 years ago, he said, a man named James Hale saved my life and the lives of 3 other soldiers. He didn't hesitate, didn't calculate the cost. He just acted, and because of him, we got to come home. He told the story. Not the sanitized version, the real one. The fear, the chaos. The moment James ran toward the second IED knowing what it would cost. James gave his life so we could live ours. This foundation exists to honor that sacrifice, not with words, with action. By making sure that the men and women who serve this country have support when they come home. Real support, not bureaucracy, not red tape, just people who care, helping people who served. The applause was genuine. Ethan saw tears in the crowd, saw Robert in the front row, his face tight with emotion, saw Victoria beside her father, smiling at Ethan with pride. After the speeches, after the photos and the handshakes and the promises of support, Robert pulled Ethan aside. You did good today. James would have been proud. I hope so. I know so. Robert handed him an envelope. This is from the board. We wanted to thank you for everything you've done to get this off the ground. Ethan opened it. Inside was a check. A substantial check. More money than he'd made in 6 months at his old jobs. This is too much. It's what you earned. Take it. Buy your daughter something nice for Christmas. Move to a better apartment. Do something for yourself for once. Ethan stared at the check. Thought about Mia. About the apartment with its broken heat and thin walls. About the life he could give her now. Thank you for all of this. for taking a chance on me. You took a chance on us first. When you asked Victoria to dance, when you told us about James, when you agreed to build this with me. Robert gripped his shoulder. You're family now, Ethan, whether you like it or not. Family. There was that word again. It didn't feel foreign anymore, just felt true. The reception continued around them. Ethan found Victoria near the windows, looking out at the city. You were amazing up there, she said when he joined her. I was terrified. You were amazing anyway. She turned to face him. I'm proud of you, of what you've built, what you're building. What we're building. She agreed. They stood there together, watching the city lights, the December snow starting to fall. Behind them, the foundation reception buzzed with energy and hope. Ahead of them, the future waited, uncertain but full of possibility. Ethan thought about the path that had led here, the tragedy that had saved his life, the loneliness that had made him notice someone else's isolation, the courage it had taken to ask a stranger to dance. Small moments, small choices, but they'd changed everything. I love you, Victoria said suddenly. I know it's too soon. I know we're still figuring this out, but I love you. Ethan's heart kicked hard against his ribs. I love you too. She'd smiled, and the scar on her face became just another part of her beauty. So what do we do now? Now? Ethan pulled her close. Now we keep going, keep building, keep showing up, together. Together, Victoria repeated. And that, Ethan thought, was the best promise he'd ever made. The snow fell harder as they stood there, Chicago transforming into something softer, quieter. Victoria's words hung in the air between them, the weight of them both terrifying and exhilarating. Ethan had been married before, had said those words before, but this felt different, less like diving off a cliff and more like finally finding solid ground. We should get back, Victoria said eventually, though neither of them moved. People will notice we're gone. Let them notice, she laughed. You've changed. The man who asked me to dance was terrified of being seen. That man didn't have anything worth being seen for. Now I do. They returned to the reception hand in hand. Robert noticed, his eyebrows rising slightly, but he said nothing, just smiled and turned back to his conversation with a potential board member. The approval was quiet but clear. The evening wound down slowly, veterans mingling with donors, stories being shared, connections being made. Ethan watched it all happen and felt something shift in his chest. This was real. The foundation wasn't just an idea anymore. It was people in a room, talking, planning, building something that would outlast all of them. Marcus Chen showed up near the end, looking uncomfortable in a borrowed suit. Ethan spotted him hovering near the entrance and immediately went over. You came, Ethan said. You invited me. Figured I should show up. Marcus's eyes scanned the room, taking in the wealth, the polish, the world he didn't belong to. This is some setup. Come on, let me introduce you to people. Cole, Marcus, you're one of the four. You're the reason this exists. Ethan gripped his shoulder. You belong here more than anyone. He introduced Marcus to Robert, watched the older man's face transform when he learned this was one of James's men. Robert shook Marcus's hand like he was something precious. Thank you for your service, and thank you for being here tonight. I didn't do anything special, sir. You survived. You're still fighting. That's everything. Robert's voice was thick. We're going to help you. Whatever you need. That's a promise. Marcus looked like he might cry. Ethan understood. When you'd been struggling alone for so long, having someone actually see you, actually care, was overwhelming. They talked for 20 minutes. Robert asking questions, really listening to the answers. Marcus slowly relaxing, the defensive posture easing. By the end, they'd set up a meeting for next week to discuss employment opportunities. I don't know how to thank you, Marcus said to Ethan as the reception finally ended. You don't have to thank me. We take care of each other. That's what James would have wanted. Yeah, he would have. Marcus paused. The other two, Rodriguez and Thompson. They're struggling too. Rodriguez is in Denver, last I heard. Thompson's somewhere in Texas. You think? Yeah, we'll find them. Bring them in. All of us together. Ethan felt the rightness of it. The four men James had saved, reunited, helping build something in his memory. James saved us for a reason. Maybe this is it. After Marcus left, after the last donors and board members filtered out, it was just Ethan, Victoria, and Robert in the empty conference room. The city sparkled below them, millions of lives being lived in buildings and apartments and houses scattered across the landscape. "We did it," Robert said quietly. "Actually did it." "This is just the beginning," Ethan reminded him. "The real work starts now." "I know, but tonight," Robert's voice cracked. "Tonight I felt close to James again, like he was here, seeing this, being proud." Victoria moved to her father's side, put her arm around him. "He would be proud, Dad. So proud." Robert wiped his eyes roughly. "I spent 8 years being angry, at the war, at the universe, at James for leaving, but maybe this is what I was supposed to do with that anger, turn it into something useful." "That's all any of us can do," Ethan said. "Take the hard things and try to make something better from them." They stood together in silence for a moment, three people connected by loss and hope and the determination to make meaning from tragedy. "I should go," Ethan said finally. "Mrs. Chen is with Mia. I need to get home." "Of course, we'll see you Monday?" Robert asked. "Monday." Victoria walked him to the elevator. In the privacy of the hallway, she kissed him properly. Not the careful kiss from earlier, but something deeper, more certain. "I meant it," she said when they broke apart. "What I said before? I love you." "I know, I meant it too." "Good." She smiled. "Now go home to your daughter. Tell her I said goodnight." The L was nearly empty this late. Ethan sat in the fluorescent silence and thought about the past 2 months. How completely his life had changed. How one moment of courage at a gala had cascaded into this. A new job, a new relationship, a foundation that would help thousands of veterans. All because he'd asked someone to dance. Mrs. Chen was dozing in the armchair when he got home. She startled awake when he opened the door. "Sorry, didn't mean to wake you." "Is okay. How was the event?" "Good. Really good." Ethan pulled out his wallet, but Mrs. Chen waved him off. "No charge tonight. Big night for you. I'm happy to help." Mrs. Chen: "Take the gift, Ethan. You deserve good things. Stop fighting it." After she left, Ethan checked on Mia. She was sprawled across her bed, one leg hanging off the edge, her stuffed elephant clutched tight. He adjusted her blanket, kissed her forehead. "We're going to be okay, baby," he whispered. "Better than okay." The next few months unfolded with the kind of chaotic momentum that comes from building something from scratch. The foundation opened its doors in February, a modest office space in the West Loop. Not fancy, but functional. Ethan hired Marcus first, then tracked down Rodriguez in Denver and Thompson in Dallas. All 4 of James's men working together to help others like them. "This feels right," Rodriguez said during their first team meeting. "Like we're finally doing something that matters." "James would have loved this," Thompson added. "All of us together, making a difference." They started small. A job training program, mental health counseling partnerships, housing assistance for homeless veterans. Each program designed by people who'd lived the struggle, who knew what actually helped versus what sounded good in grant proposals. The work was hard, heartbreaking sometimes. They couldn't save everyone. Some veterans were too broken, too lost in addiction or trauma or despair. But they saved some, and some became many. By spring, they'd placed 42 veterans in jobs, housed 23 families, connected over 100 people with mental health services. The numbers grew every week. Ethan worked long hours, but not the desperate, exhausted hours from before. These hours had purpose, and he made it home for dinner most nights. Made it to Mia's school events. Made it to the moments that mattered. Victoria became part of their routine. Sunday aquarium trips. Friday movie nights. Wednesday dinners where she'd show up with takeout and stay to help with Mia's homework. She was good with numbers in a way Ethan wasn't, patient when Mia got frustrated with math problems. "You're better at this than me," Ethan admitted one evening, watching Victoria explain fractions using slices of pizza. "I'm better at explaining, you're better at everything else." Mia looked between them, pizza slice in hand. "Are you going to get married?" Ethan choked on his water. Victoria's eyes went wide. We haven't," Ethan stammered. "Because I think you should," Mia continued, oblivious to their discomfort. Victoria's nice and she makes you happy, and she actually likes spending time with me. That's important.
It is important, Victoria agreed, her voice carefully neutral. But marriage is a big decision. It takes time. How much time? However much it takes. Okay, but not too much time. You're already old.
Mia.
Ethan was mortified.
What? You're 32. That's old. My teacher said her grandma got married at 30 and everyone thought she was ancient.
Victoria was trying not to laugh.
I'm 30, so I guess I'm ancient too. That's different. Women can get married later. Men can't because they go bald. Where are you getting this information? Ethan demanded. Emma's mom. She knows everything about marriage. She's been married 3 times. After Mia went to bed, Ethan and Victoria sat on the couch, both still processing the conversation. I'm sorry about that, Ethan said. She's 7. She doesn't understand boundaries. She understands what she wants. A family, stability, people who love each other. Victoria turned to face him. She's not wrong, you know. About me going bald? About us. This. What we're building. She took his hand. I know it's fast. I know we're still figuring things out. But when I think about the future, you're in it. You and Mia both. Ethan's heart was pounding. Yeah? Yeah. She smiled. I'm not saying we need to rush anything, but maybe we stop pretending this is casual. Maybe we acknowledge that this is real, that we're in it for the long haul. I can do that. Ethan kissed her. I want to do that. Good, because I'm not going anywhere. They didn't get engaged that night, didn't make grand pronouncements or dramatic plans, just sat together on the couch and acknowledged what they both already knew. This was it. They'd found each other, and they weren't letting go. In April, the foundation held its first major fundraising gala, full circle from where everything had started. The same venue, the Metropolitan Club, the same ballroom where Ethan had served champagne and Victoria had sat alone. But everything was different now. Ethan wasn't serving. He was a speaker, standing at a podium in a suit that actually fit, telling the foundation's story to a room full of wealthy donors. Victoria wasn't sitting alone. She was at the head table, radiant in a green dress that made her eyes luminous, her scar just another part of her face. Robert was there too, introducing Ethan with words that made Ethan's throat tight. 8 years ago, I lost my brother. 3 years ago, I nearly lost my daughter in a different way. I thought grief was something to be managed, buried, controlled. Then this man, Robert gestured to Ethan, walked into my life and taught me that grief can be transformed, that loss can become purpose, that the people we love don't truly leave us if we carry forward what they believed in. The applause was thunderous. Ethan took the podium, looked out at the crowd. Some of the same people from that first gala were here. The men who'd mocked Victoria, the women who'd whispered. Their faces were different now, respectful, attentive. 6 months ago, I asked a woman to dance at an event very much like this one, Ethan began. I was terrified. I was a server. She was a billionaire heiress, and I had no business approaching her. But I did it anyway. Because sometimes doing the right thing means being brave enough to ignore all the reasons you shouldn't. He told the story, the dance, the discovery of James's connection, the foundation's birth, the veterans they'd helped, the lives they'd changed. We can't save everyone, Ethan said, but we can try. We can show up. We can treat people with dignity. We can remember that everyone, no matter where they've been or what they've lost, deserves a chance to rebuild their life. More applause. Ethan stepped down from the podium, and Victoria was there, taking his hand. You were amazing, she said. I was shaking. You were amazing anyway. The gala raised over $2 million, enough to expand their programs, open a second office, hire more staff, enough to help hundreds more veterans find their footing. After the formal program ended, the dancing began. The same quartet from 6 months ago playing the same kind of music. Couples filled the floor, spinning in practice circles. May I have this dance? Ethan asked Victoria, holding out his hand. You may. She took it, smiling. But I should warn you, I'm still not very good at this. Neither am I, but we'll figure it out. They moved onto the floor together, not hiding this time, not sneaking moments when no one was watching, just dancing openly and honestly while the room watched. Some people smiled, some people whispered. Ethan didn't care. You know what's different about tonight? Victoria said as they turned. Everything? When we danced before, I felt like I was pretending to be brave, pretending the scar didn't matter, pretending I could be normal. She looked up at him. Tonight, I'm not pretending anything. I'm just being myself, and that's enough. It's more than enough. I know. You taught me that. They danced 3 songs. By the third, they'd found something resembling a rhythm. Not perfect, not polished, but theirs. As the evening wound down, Robert approached them near the edge of the dance floor. Can I steal Victoria for a dance? He asked Ethan. Of course. Ethan stepped back, watching Robert and Victoria move onto the floor together. The way Robert held his daughter, protective but not suffocating. The way Victoria smiled at her father, forgiveness and love in her expression. They looked good together. A voice beside him. Ethan turned. Marcus, dressed in his new suit, the one he'd bought with his first foundation paycheck. Yeah, they do. You did that. Brought them back together. I just asked her to dance. Yeah, and that changed everything. Marcus paused. I wanted to thank you for all of this. The job, the second chance, being part of something that matters. You earned it. Maybe, but you made it possible. Marcus looked out at the dancing crowd. James would be proud of the foundation, of you, of all of us. I hope so. I know so. He didn't save us so we could just survive. He saved us so we could live, really live. Marcus clapped Ethan on the shoulder. You're doing that, living, and you're helping the rest of us learn how. After Marcus walked away, Ethan stood alone for a moment, watching the gala swirl around him. He thought about that night 6 months ago. How lost he'd felt. How invisible. How certain that his life would always be a struggle, always be small. One choice had changed that. One moment of courage. Not the courage to fight or to sacrifice, just the courage to ask someone to dance. Later, much later, after the gala ended and the guests filtered out, Ethan found Victoria on the same balcony where they'd first talked about James. The city spread out below them, lights twinkling in the spring darkness. Thinking about something? He asked, joining her at the railing. About how much has changed, how different everything is from 6 months ago. Good different. The best different. She leaned into him. I was so alone then, so certain that was all I deserved, and now I have you, and Mia, and my father actually sees me again, and I'm part of something that helps people. She turned to face him. I have a life, Ethan. A real life. Not just existing, actually living. So am I. They stood together in silence, the sounds of the city washing over them. I have something for you, Ethan said eventually. He pulled a small box from his jacket pocket. Victoria's eyes went wide. Ethan, it's not what you think. Not yet anyway. Open it. She opened the box. Inside was James's handkerchief, carefully folded, along with a small card. I had it cleaned and preserved, Ethan explained. I wanted you and your father to have it, to keep. It belongs with James's family. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. But you've carried this for 8 years. It's yours. No, I was just holding it, keeping it safe until I could bring it home. Ethan took her hands. James saved me so I could live my life. I don't need his handkerchief to remember that anymore. I have everything I need right here. Victoria kissed him, salt tears on her lips. I love you so much. I love you too. They stayed on the balcony for a long time, holding each other while the city lived and breathed around them. Eventually, they'd go home. Eventually, there would be tomorrow and all its complications and challenges. But for now, this moment was enough. 6 weeks later, on a Sunday morning at the aquarium, Ethan proposed. Not with fanfare or grand gestures. Just the 3 of them, Ethan, Victoria, and Mia, standing in front of the penguin exhibit, watching the birds dive and swim and waddle around. Mia, Ethan said, kneeling down to his daughter's level. I want to ask Victoria to marry me, but you're part of this decision too, so I need to know. Is that okay with you? Mia looked at Victoria, serious and evaluating. Will you be nice to my dad? Always, Victoria promised. And will you still come to the aquarium with us? Every month, if you'll have me. And will you be my mom, like for real? Victoria's voice shook. If you want me to be, then yes, I'd be honored. Mia nodded, satisfied. Okay, you can marry her, Daddy. Ethan stood, turned to Victoria, pulled out the ring he'd been carrying for a week, waiting for the right moment. I don't have a big speech prepared, he said. I'm not good at fancy words, but I know that my life started the night I asked you to dance. Everything good, everything meaningful, everything worth having, it all came from that moment. From you saying yes. Victoria was crying, smiling through tears. So I'm asking again, Victoria Hale, will you dance with me? Not just today, but every day, for the rest of our lives. Yes, she said. Yes. 1,000 times yes. The ring was simple, a single diamond on a silver band. Ethan slid it onto her finger with shaking hands. It's perfect, Victoria said. You're sure, because we can... She kissed him, stopping the words. Behind them, Mia cheered. A few other aquarium visitors applauded. The penguins kept swimming, oblivious to the human drama unfolding in front of their habitat. They got married in August. Small ceremony in Robert's backyard, just family and close friends. The 4 veterans James had saved served as groomsmen. Mia was flower girl, taking her duties very seriously, dropping petals in precise intervals. Robert walked Victoria down the makeshift aisle, his face wet with tears. When he placed her hand in Ethan's, he whispered something only they could hear. Thank you, for giving me my daughter back, for giving all of us a second chance. The ceremony was short, no religious elements, just the 2 of them promising to love each other, to show up every day, to build a life together. When the officiant said Ethan could kiss his bride, Victoria pulled him close and whispered in his ear, We did it! We're actually doing this. Yeah, we are. The reception was joyful and loud. Marcus gave a toast that made everyone cry. Robert gave a toast that made everyone laugh. Mia gave a toast that was mostly about penguins but ended with I love my new mom and I'm really happy. Victoria's toast was last. She stood at the head table, Ethan beside her, and looked out at the gathered crowd. 6 months ago, a man asked me to dance when no one else would. He didn't know me anything. But he saw me sitting alone and decided that wasn't right. That one act of kindness, that one moment of courage, changed everything. She turned to Ethan. You saved me. Not from anything dramatic, just from loneliness, from believing I'd always be alone. You showed me that damage doesn't mean broken, that scars are just proof you survived something hard. She raised her glass. To my husband, the bravest man I know, the kindest man I know, the man who taught me that love isn't about finding someone perfect. It's about finding someone who sees you, really sees you, and chooses you anyway. The toast dissolved into applause and tears and laughter. Ethan pulled Victoria close, overwhelmed by the moment, by the crowd, by the impossible fact that this was his life now. Their first dance was to the same song the quartet had played that first night. They moved badly, stepping on each other's feet, laughing when they nearly collided with the cake table. But it was perfect anyway. I can't believe this is real, Victoria said. Believe it. You're stuck with me now. Good. That's exactly where I want to be. The foundation continued to grow. By their first anniversary, they'd helped over 500 veterans find stability. By their second, over 1,000. The work was endless, exhausting, vital. Mia grew too. From 7 to 8 to 9, each year bringing new challenges and joys. She stayed obsessed with the ocean, her room filling with marine biology books and drawings of increasingly complex ecosystems. Victoria encouraged it, taking her to lectures at the Field Museum, signing her up for summer programs at the aquarium. You're raising a scientist, Victoria told Ethan one night, watching Mia explain coral reef symbiosis with the intensity of a professor. We're raising a scientist, Ethan corrected. You're as much her parent as I am. And it was true. Victoria had stepped into Mia's life with the same courage she'd shown in accepting Ethan's proposal. No pretending, no trying to replace Mia's biological mother, just being present, showing up, loving unconditionally. Robert became a real grandfather to Mia, spoiling her with books and museum trips and patient afternoons listening to her theories about whale communication. The relationship healed something in him, filled a space that had been empty since James's death. I miss so much, he told Ethan once, watching Mia show him her latest drawing. When Victoria was this age, I was too busy building my empire to notice her growing up. But Mia, I'm not making that mistake again. You're a good grandfather. I'm trying to be a better person. It's harder than being a good businessman, but more important. Life wasn't perfect. There were hard days. Times when Ethan's PTSD flared and he couldn't get out of bed. Times when Victoria struggled with anxiety about her appearance, when someone's stare or comment would send her spiraling. Times when Mia acted out, testing boundaries, missing her biological mother who'd chosen to stay absent. But they worked through it, together, as a family. 5 years after the gala, they stood together in the foundation's new headquarters. A full building now, 4 floors dedicated to veteran services. Job training on the first floor, mental health services on the second, housing assistance on the third, administrative offices on the fourth. They'd helped over 10,000 veterans find their footing, 10,000 lives changed, 10,000 families stabilized. James would be proud, Victoria said, looking around the bustling lobby. Yeah, he would. Ethan pulled her close. We did this. All of us. Because one night I was brave enough to ask you to dance. And I was brave enough to say yes. Best decision I ever made. Second best, Victoria corrected, smiling. The best was marrying me. You're right, that was definitely the best. They stood together in the lobby, watching veterans come and go, lives being rebuilt, futures being reclaimed. Somewhere above them, on the 4th floor, Mia was doing her homework in Ethan's office, probably drawing marine animals in the margins of her math worksheet. This was the life James had died for. Not just survival. Thriving, building, loving, making a difference. Ethan thought about that day in Afghanistan sometimes. Less frequently now, but still there, the explosion, the fear. James running toward the second IED, the moment that had defined everything that came after. Thank you, he said quietly, speaking to a memory, to a ghost, to a brother he'd carried for so long. Thank you for giving me this, all of this. I hope I'm making it worth it. Victoria squeezed his hand. You are. Every single day, you are. And maybe that was the point, not to be perfect, not to never struggle, just to keep showing up, keep trying, keep choosing courage over comfort, connection over isolation, hope over despair, to dance when everyone else was too afraid, to see people when everyone else looked away, to build something meaningful from tragedy, to live fully, love deeply, and honor sacrifice by refusing to waste the gift of another day. Ethan Cole had been saved twice, once by James Hale in Afghanistan, once by Victoria Hale in a Chicago ballroom, and now he spent every day saving himself by helping others, by being present for his daughter, by loving his wife with everything he had. It wasn't a perfect life, but it was a good one, a real one, a life worth living. And that, in the end, was all anyone could ask for.